Chapter 2070. The maids brought the brocade robe forward. Yi Qing Luo hurriedly received that brocade robe. "I'll do it myself. All of you can leave now." The maids couldn't persuade Yi Qing Luo and could only remind her on the details of how to wear the brocade robe before leaving. The place where the inheritance ceremony was held was in Three Springs Sect's biggest garden. Under the meticulous decorations of several hundred maids, the garden was filled with flowers, and it was extremely beautiful. In the middle of the garden, there was a high stage which could stand 300 people, with a long table and a few armchairs. And right in front of the high stage was a sacrificial altar. A huge heavenly joss stick was burning with green smoke. By the side of the sacrificial altar stood a white-robed old man who looked like an immortal, with his eyes closed as he rested, with an unfathomable attitude. Surrounding the high stage were rows of exquisite delicacies, desserts, etc. long tables. Those were the seats to receive VIPs. Three Springs Sect was the West Continent's competition. Three Springs Sect's change of ownership to the West Continent was an extremely joyous matter. In the entire garden, there were at least 10 over famous and promising people from various powerhouses. Even those powerhouses who usually had enmity with each other, when they came to Three Springs Sect, they all laughed off their enmity, not creating any trouble in Three Springs Sect. It was almost midnight, which was around 9 in the morning. Three Springs Sect's garden was already filled with guests. Even the representatives from other continents who came later squeezed together with a group of people, wanting to join in on the liveliness. The bustling garden was bustling with noise. Suddenly they heard a notification. "The monarch has arrived." Following that, they saw Lung Fengying dressed in a bright yellow dragon robe as he slowly walked over. He only brought along a eunuch, who was holding an exquisite jade box in his hand. When the crowd saw that, they all stood up to welcome him. Greetings to the monarch. The people present here were basically existences that could shake the entire Western continent 3 times with a casual shake. There was no need for them to kneel down when they saw Lung Fengying. Lung Fengying waved his hand warmly. "Everyone, please don't be so courteous. Today's main venue is Three Springs Sect, and I am only here as a friend to congratulate Qing Luo on inheriting Three Springs Sect." The crowd started to laugh softly. Lung Fengying's words made everyone's hearts beat like drums. Anyone with a discerning eye knew. The reason why Lung Fengying was able to become the new monarch was all because of Yi Qing Luo's blessings. If it wasn't for Yi Qing Luo, Lung Fengying might still be dispirited in the Crown Prince Palace. Looking at how Lung Fengying only brought along a father-in-law to attend Yi Qing Luo's succession ceremony, it could be seen that the relationship between the new sovereign and the future sovereign of the Three Springs Sect was not ordinary. After all, a monarch is a monarch, and a subject is a subject. A monarch is the son of heaven, so there is no need for him to lower himself and force himself to be friends with the 7th girl. On the high platform, an old voice broke the guesses of the crowd. Everyone's gaze immediately followed the sound. On the high platform, the luxuriously dressed old ancestor had a gloomy expression on his face, as though he was unattainable. Although old ancestor's words seemed to be elevating Lung Fengying and belittling their Three Springs Sect, saying that they were unable to climb up to the royal family. However, his words were too rude. Even if it was Lung Fengying, at this moment, his expression was also rather ugly. He coughed dryly and said in a gentle voice, "Ancestor, have you misunderstood something?" Ian. Chapter 2071. Old Grandmadam's unyielding attitude, no matter who it was, would be able to tell the deep meaning behind it. Lung Fengying stopped the words he was about to say. The expression on his face was still gentle and calm, but beneath his eyes, there was an indistinct sharp glint. This old grandmadam. What did she mean? Why, it seemed as though she wanted to draw a line between the royal family and Yi Qing Luo. Old grandmadam's eyes are really sharp, to be able to see through the sovereign's true thoughts at one look. Suddenly, a sweet smiling voice was heard from the backyard of the garden. Yi Qing Luo strolled leisurely with her hands behind her back, as she slowly walked over from the backyard's small path. That leisurely look totally didn't show the solemnity and nervousness of her inheriting the position of Three Springs Sect's sovereign. Yi Qing Luo's dressing today was slightly more formal. She was still wearing a red long dress, but today, she had put in quite a bit of effort on the long dress. Different from usual, it was so simple and elegant that there was no pattern at all. The red long dress which she wore today was adorned with silver scales, sparkling with a dazzling brilliance. Her long black hair was tied up simply, and a simple cherry blossom jade hairpin was inserted diagonally. It looked extremely elegant and quick-witted. Standing on the stage, they instantly felt an extremely majestic aura being released from the young lady. Everyone's mind instantly surfaced 4 words. 9. Heavens. Xian. Female. You. Why aren't you wearing the sovereign's attire which I have prepared for you? Old Grand Madam saw Yiqing Luo and suddenly slammed the table as she stood up, as her brows creased into a bundle. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she gave an evil and flamboyant smile. I feel that wearing my own clothes is more comfortable. Presumptuous. Old Grand Madam's face was filled with anger. Usually you throw a tantrum and I can indulge you. But today is such a solemn day and you're still so presumptuous. Yiqing Luo's brows rose. Facing the raging Old Grand Madam, her lips curled slightly. When has Old Grand Madam ever indulged me? 7th girl. Old Grand Madam seemed as though she had not expected Yiqing Luo to embarrass her in front of so many people. Yiqing Luo dug her ears. Old Grand Ancestor, I'm just beside you and I can hear you. There's no need to shout so loudly, leave your voice. Later on, you still need to express your feelings towards the new sovereign. The old ancestor was so angry that his entire body was trembling. The hand that was holding onto the walking stick also had green veins popping out. Lady Biming stood at the side and immediately took the old ancestor's arm. She said gently, Old ancestor, I know that you haven't been able to rest well for a few nights in order to prepare the sect leader's attire for Miss 7. After all, Miss 7 is only a 15-year-old child. How would she like such dark-colored clothes? Please don't bother with the child. Her voice was not loud, but it was not soft either. It explained the current situation in an appropriate manner. Ancestor, today is a big day for the Three Springs sect. Why don't you just smile? Don't look so serious. You're scaring the juniors, Biming advised warmly. The old ancestor's expression became more restrained. The hand that was holding onto the walking stick tightened. Following that, she raised her head and looked at Yiqing Luo as her gaze became gentler. Forget it, forget it. I'm old and don't understand the colors that you youngsters like. Since 7th girl likes to wear this attire, then wear this attire to inherit the sovereign's position. Saying that, she returned to her seat with Lady Biming's support. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to haggle with the old Grand Madam. Chapter 2072. Yiqing Luo's words caused ripples in everyone's hearts. In the eyes of outsiders? Outsiders? Earlier when she said that Lung Fenging was barely friends with Yiqing Luo, it was from old Grand Madam. Yiqing Luo, this outsider, was she referring to? Old Grand Madam? TSK. Why did it feel that today's Three Springs sect patriarch succession ceremony wasn't as simple as what they had imagined? Somehow, the amount of information was a little too much. Lung Fenging stood up as he wasn't anxious nor impatient as he laughed warmly. My and Qing Luo's brotherhood had already been set when Qing Luo just entered the Heavenly Academy. You're my best brother, so how would I possibly force myself on you? His words were sincere and gentle. Especially when he spoke to Yiqing Luo, he used I to address himself, which meant that he had let go of his monarch position to interact with Yiqing Luo. Even if it was the previous Three Springs sect patriarch Yi Tianquang, he probably wouldn't receive such courteous treatment from the previous monarch. This was called barely treating Yiqing Luo as a friend? The two of them were obviously very good brothers. Not to mention a man and a woman, there was no such thing as pure friendship. Not to mention how the crowd didn't suspect that the so-called brotherhood between Yiqing Luo and Lung Fenging actually had a hidden meaning. With such an outstanding man like the Overlord around, the other men were all scum, alright? Unless Yiqing Luo was blind, which was why she didn't want the Overlord to have an affair with Lung Fenging in the dark. So these two absolutely had a clean brotherhood relationship that couldn't be any cleaner. Yiqing Luo knew that right from the start when Lung Fenging entered the garden. He had lowered his stance and said in public that they were friends. But he wanted to make use of her current rallying power. Lung Fenging had just ascended the throne not long ago. whereas Yi Qingluo was now the West Continent's hero, a famous person in the West Continent. Only by borrowing Yi Qingluo's current power would he be able to stabilize his own position. This kind of use, if it was in the past, Yi Qingluo would have hated it. But, now that she was so cooperative, she also had her own plans. She curved her charming eyes as her gaze landed on the jade box which the eunuch was holding behind Lung Fengying. Following that, her face revealed a crafty smile. Then how can I see your sincerity? Lung Fengying took a look at eunuch behind him. The eunuch quickly stepped forward and raised the jade box high above his head with both hands. In a shrill voice he said, "In order to celebrate 7th Miss Ye's ascension as the new leader of the Three Springs sect, the monarch has specially presented this to 7th Miss Yi as a congratulatory gift." "Oh, what congratulatory gift?" Yi Qingluo raised her brows with a smile that didn't look like a smile. Lung Fengying narrowed his eyes as he acutely sensed that Yi Qingluo's reaction was a little strange. As though Yi Qingluo had long known what the congratulatory gift he had prepared was. He suppressed the strange feeling in his heart and waved his hand, indicating for his eunuch to open the jade box. The eunuch accepted the order and respectfully opened the jade box. The monarch has specially gifted the tiger emblem to the 7th Miss of the Night to show his sincerity. The crowd burst into an uproar. Even the old ancestor could not sit still. Elder ancestor shuddered and slammed the table. She stood up abruptly and stared at the box in her eunuch's hand. "What? Tiger Tally? Monarch, how could you give such a precious thing to the Tiger Tally? That was something that could summon the Western Continent's royal army." He gifted the Tiger Talisman to Yi Qingluo. If Yi Qingluo had the intention to rebel, then she would be able to occupy the Western Continent in minutes. Was there something wrong with Monarch's brain? Everyone couldn't believe that Monarch actually took such a huge risk to gift the Tiger Tally to Yi Qingluo. Chapter 2073. Only one piece. That was already very heaven-defying, alright? 1 Three Springs sect and 200,000 imperial soldiers. If Yi Qingluo wanted to rebel, it was just a matter of minutes. Lung Fengying smiled warmly. Is Qingluo satisfied with this sincerity? Yi Qingluo smiled lightly and nodded, satisfied. Lung Fengying gave him a look. The eunuch held the jade box and was about to step forward. Yi Qingluo smiled as she shook her head. "Don't be in a hurry to send it over, everything shall wait till after the succession ceremony." Eunuch stopped in his tracks as he turned back to look at Lung Fengying. Seeing Lung Fengying nod his head, eunuch then kept the jade box and returned to Lung Fengying's side. Because Lung Fengying was expressing his sincerity, the atmosphere of the ceremony gradually livened up. After Yi Qingluo greeted everyone, the sound of a gong could be heard from the altar. The old man who was meditating like an old monk suddenly opened his eyes and shouted loudly, "The auspicious time to worship the heavens has arrived. Young sect master, please move to the altar and carry out the heavenly worship ceremony." A deep voice suddenly exploded in the crowd like a clap of thunder. Everyone was shocked. Yi Qingluo picked her ears as she gave an impatient look at the elderly man as her lips twitched. "We're not far from each other. Can't you lower your voice?" The old man was expressionless and extremely serious. "Young sect master, please move to the altar and carry out the heaven offering ceremony." Yi Qingluo's lips twitched. However, he still walked towards the altar. Behind him, the old ancestor leaned on his walking stick, his face dark and terrifying, his malicious eyes filled with a piercingly cold light. Watching as Yi Qingluo approached the altar step by step, the old ancestor seemed to be unable to restrain himself any longer, and was about to charge forward. Lady Baiming grabbed the elder ancestor's hand in time and said in a low voice, "Elder ancestor, please think twice before you act. Miss Seven is no longer the same as before. If the elder ancestor insists on stopping Miss Seven's succession ceremony and provokes Miss Seven's retaliation, the consequences will be unimaginable." The old ancestor's footsteps stopped. "Old ancestor, don't think about anything. Just quietly watch as 7th young mistress becomes the Three Springs sect master. I can say with certainty that as long as 7th Miss becomes the sect leader of the Three Springs sect, our Three Springs sect will definitely become the leader of the 4 great sects in the future." Bai Ming knew the old ancestor's state of mind very well. Every word that he said was right into the old ancestor's heart. The elder ancestor gripped his walking stick tightly, and finally sat back in his seat, towards the small movements behind her. How could Yi Qing Luo, who had an extremely strong sense of perception, not sense it? Hearing the sound of old grandmadam sitting down, Yi Qing Luo laughed coldly in her heart. This Bai Ming woman was truly intelligent. She had seen through everything so clearly. It was no wonder that such an intelligent woman could grasp the heart of the old ancestor so firmly within a short period of time when she was the head of the family. It was precisely because of Bai Ming's intelligence. The Bai Ming clan was also very smart, and would not choose to become enemies with Yi Qing Luo. He walked to the altar. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes and looked at the solemn old man beside her. This old man was an elder of the Three Springs sect. It was said that he had lived in the Three Springs sect for 500 years. Other than the important matters of the Three Springs sect, this sect elder would absolutely not appear. The Three Springs sect's sect master's succession ceremony had always been presided over by the sect elder, the so-called heaven offering ceremony, and it was because of the legends regarding the four great sections. The four great sects were the legends of the God clan's tomb guardians. Therefore, the sect elder had to ask the heavens for an answer during the sect master's heaven offering ceremony. Chapter 2074. Yi Qing Luo could feel it clearly. This sect elder was extremely disdainful towards her. Thinking of old grandmadam and the sect elder's attitude, Yi Qing Luo was no longer surprised. It didn't matter whether they liked her, or how they treated her. Young matriarch, please take a step forward and raise the smoke to worship the heavens. Raising the smoke meant lighting the incense and kowtowing. Yi Qing Luo stood in front of the altar and didn't move. The sect elder had already stuffed 3 incense sticks into Yi Qing Luo's fingers. He immediately stretched out his hand and pressed Yi Qing Luo's shoulder, trying to force her to kowtow. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she squinted her eyes in displeasure when the sect elder made his move. She was about to grab the sect elder's wrist. Suddenly, a loud boom sound was heard. From the sky, a majestic profound energy came straight towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. The sect elder reacted swiftly. Just as he sensed the profound energy, he immediately let go of Yi Qing Luo's shoulder and quickly retreated to avoid the profound energy attack. Damn old man! Yi Qing Luo cursed in her heart as her lips twitched with a sneer. Her 5 fingers moved and the glower flame fan opened up on her fingertips. A raging hurricane shot out from the glower flame fan. It collided with that profound energy attack. A loud bam was heard and Yi Qing Luo directly used her overwhelming strength to fiercely suppress that oncoming profound chi back to where it came from. Ah! A scream was heard. A figure fell from the sky, receiving the power of Yi Qing Luo's hurricane and his own strength. That person had not lost his life. When he hit the ground, he suddenly flipped over and stabilized his body as he half knelt on the ground. A mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. Second young master. The lady's incredulous cry was heard from the high platform as Bai Mingshi staggered forward and knelt beside the person who sneaked an attack on Yi Qing Luo. That person was none other than Yi Fengru. It was Yi Fengru who should be locked up in the palace's dungeon. Bai Mingshi held Yi Fengru's hand and cried out in fright. Second young master, why did you do this? Today is 7th Mrs. Succession ceremony. How could you? Bai Ming's palm warmed Yi Fengru's cold hand. His eyes, which were originally filled with hatred as he stared at Yi Qing Luo, slowly shifted onto Bai Ming clan. He recognized the Bai Ming clan. The expression on his face softened a little. The viciousness in his eyes also faded a little. Mother, Yi Fengru said in a hoarse voice. Bai Ming's tears fell like rain. As a member of a large clan, as a concubine, she had no right to call her young master by his name, even if that young master was her own son. And her son could not call her mother in front of others. Now hearing the word mother, Bai Ming's heart throbbed with pain. She held her son's hand tightly and said in a choked voice, "Son, listen to me, don't think about avenging Miss Z anymore." At the mention of the name, Miss Z, Yi Fengru's body stiffened and his clear eyes were once again tainted with madness. He fiercely shook off Bai Ming Clan as he stood up and stared at Yi Qing Luo malevolently. Yi Qing Luo, you have no right to inherit this sovereign position. Get down from the altar. Son. You. Bai Ming Clan wanted to pounce forward. Yi Qing Luo immediately moved and shifted to Bai Ming Clan's side as she grabbed her arm. Yi Fengru's condition is not right. Don't go over, he might hurt you. Chapter 2075. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as she looked at the hysterical and crazy Yi Fengru. She let go of Bai Ming's hand as her eyes remained calm. Now it's not about whether I am willing to save him or not, but whether he is willing to let himself go. Seventh Miss actually Ruerhi. His nature is not bad, he is bewitched. How could Bai Ming not see her son's abnormal craziness? Yi Qing Luo waved her hand. Stand at the back. Bai Ming clenched her handkerchief tightly. But Ruerhi. I promised you that I will give him a chance. Yi Qing Luo glanced at Bai Ming indifferently. Bai Ming bit her lower lip as she chose to believe in Yi Qing Luo. Now she could only choose to believe in Yi Qing Luo. Bai Ming retreated to old grandmadame's side as she clenched her handkerchief nervously as she stared at Yi Fengru's direction worriedly. She ignored old grandmadame who was standing beside her as she heaved a sigh of relief. Old grandmadame's fingers which were holding onto her walking stick tightened. Her sinister eyes looked at Yi Fengru. She totally ignored Yi Fengru's craziness. Her eyes were even filled with joy as she rejoiced that Yi Fengru was here. Yi Fengru, I don't care if you are pretending to be crazy or acting dumb or who bewitched you. Yi Qing Luo's sweet voice was pleasant to listen to, but unfortunately, her tone was cold like a cold current, penetrating into one's heart. Her expression was indifferent without any emotions. Everyone present felt a chill down their spines as an inexplicable chill rose from the bottom of their feet, as they couldn't help but shiver. Considering that the Bai Ming clan has spent some effort on Ziling and Little Yu, I can give you a chance. She walked slowly towards Yi Fengru's direction. Either you put down your weapons now and find a place to sit at the guest seating area and finish the succession ceremony. Otherwise, I'll kill you now and continue with the succession ceremony. Her words were filled with a smile, but it still couldn't conceal the coldness in her words. Everyone sat upright, straightened their backs and looked down, indicating that they would only listen quietly and not disturb. Yi Fengru's crazed eyes were dyed with fiery flames. He stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. His facial features were sinister and terrifying. Yi Qing Luo, I will absolutely not let Three Springs sect fall into the hands of an outsider. You're not a member of the Yi clan at all. What right do you have to become the sect master of the Three Springs sect? He lifted his foot and stomped on the ground. Immediately, a strong wave of profound energy rippled out from the ground beneath his feet. As the hurricane blew, some light items and decorations were scattered all over the ground. Yi Fengru's words were like a stone thrown into a still pond. It set off layers upon layers of ripples. Those who came to participate in the Three Springs sect succession ceremony today were all famous and promising figures in the West Continent. There were even representatives from other continents who came to congratulate them. Yi Fengru's words shocked everyone present. An outsider? Yi Qing Luo was an outsider? Yi Qing Luo wasn't part of the Yi family? How was this possible? The whirlwind enveloped Yi Qing Luo within it. Yi Qing Luo didn't move. Her standing posture was languid, and the expression on her face didn't show any signs of shock from Yi Fengru's words. She lightly raised her pink lips. Oh, what evidence do you have to prove that I'm not from the Yi family? Chapter 2076. Enough, Bai Ming. Since second brother has already told us the truth, we don't need to hide anymore. Old grandmadame's aged voice interrupted Bai Ming's explanation. Bai Ming was stunned and turned to look at old grandmadame in disbelief. Old grandmadame stretched out her hand and pressed on Bai Ming's shoulder. Her malicious eyes flashed with a trace of strange cold light. That cold light made Bai Ming's breath tighten. She pursed her red lips and did not dare to continue. Then, elder ancestor let go of her and slowly walked to the front of the high platform with the help of her walking stick. Everyone's eyes were focused on old grandmadame. What old grandmadame said just now had really disrupted everyone's train of thought. Could it be? Yi Qingluo was really not from the Yi family? Under everyone's hopeful gaze, old Grandmadam's hands rested on his walking stick as he cleared his throat and his gaze sunk as he looked at everyone present, sighing softly. What number 2 said is right. Yi Qingluo is indeed not a member of our Yi family. What? 7th Miss Yi is not from the Yi family? That is to say, 7th Miss Yi is not the young matriarch of Three Springs sect? How is that possible? How could Madame Yi not be from the Yi family? Her talent, her courage, and her strength. Except for the descendant of the Three Springs sect, one of the 4 major sects. Only she could reach such a level. Who else could have such an advantage in cultivation? Old Grandmadame's words caused everyone present to express their disbelief. Amidst these incredulous questions and doubts, a different voice gradually emerged. To tell you the truth, I felt very strange just now. Old Grandmadame's attitude towards 7th Miss Yi is really totally not like how you treat your granddaughter. Yes, I have this feeling too. I just wanted to say that old Grandmadame does not seem to want 7th Miss Yi to inherit the position of patriarch. Old Grandmadame does not want Three Springs sect to fall into the hands of an outsider. If 7th Miss Yi is really not from the Yi family, then she indeed does not have the right to inherit the position of Three Springs sect's patriarch. Listening to the voices behind, it constantly stirred up the emotions of the surrounding people. Yi Qingluo's pink lips curled into a cold arc of ridicule. She narrowed her eyes. She stared at those who doubted her qualifications to inherit the position of the sect master with a faint smile. These people he looked very unfamiliar. Each of them looked to be in their 20s or 30s. There was an unconcealable hostility between his brows. It was obvious that his hands were stained with blood, and he was someone who lived on the edge of a knife. Yi Qingluo scoffed lightly as her lips curled into a ridiculing cold arc. She raised her eyes and looked at the old ancestor calmly and indifferently. I have to admit that the old ancestor's heart is really big. While watching the Three Springs sect fall, you still have to drag the younger generation into the abyss. She shook her head helplessly and clicked her tongue. The Yi clan must have done too many wicked things in their previous lives to have such an elder who cheats the younger generation like you. 7th girl. Old Grandmadame and Yi Qingluo exchanged glances, her voice still maintaining the old helpless tone. This old one just can't bear to see Three Springs sect, just like that, fall into the hands of outsiders. This old one must tell everyone about this matter. Yi Qingluo scoffed lightly, tisk. She knew that old Grandmadame would absolutely not let the patriarch succession ceremony go on smoothly so easily. Looking at the heartache and helplessness on the face of the old ancestor, could she use a sentence that was not appropriate but the meaning was similar, to express her own feelings? Chapter 2077. Haha. Yi Qingluo, have you ever thought why? You are the Yi family's daughter, the future young matriarch of Three Springs sect. But unfortunately, you are living in an abandoned courtyard, eating leftovers that are worse than the servants. You have even eaten the dog's food. In this Three Springs sect, no matter who it is, they can bully you, tease you, they don't like you. Yi Fengru got old Grandmadame's cooperation. His heart was getting more and more arrogant. He laughed loudly. His sinister facial features made his laughter look extremely treacherous and sinister. Yi Qingluo smiled coldly. There was no trace of emotion on her face. That pair of charming eyes, extremely calm and indifferent. As if she totally didn't put Yi Fengru's words to heart. Yi Fengru laughed and laughed. He didn't get any response. The laughter gradually came to an abrupt end. He frowned and stared fiercely at Yi Qingluo, trying to find any flaw on her face. That fiery red long-robe young lady was expressionless from beginning to end. Only that cold sneer at the corner of her mouth added a bit of liveliness to that gorgeous face. Yi Fengru's heart had suffered a serious blow. He thought that as long as he said this matter out, Yi Qingluo would definitely not be able to take this blow. After all, Yi Qingluo had always thought that she was the young matriarch of Three Springs sect. And relying on the title of young matriarch, she had bullied many people. And most people, after hearing that they were not from the Yi family, the first reaction would be to think about who their biological parents were. But Yiqing Luo totally didn't look like she could not take the blow. On the contrary, she already knew everything. Yi Fengru was unwilling, his facial features tightened, gritted his teeth and continued. Yiqing Luo, old grandmadam doesn't like you. Every time father sees you, other than disgust, there's hatred. Do you want to know the reason? Do you know? That shameless mother of yours, cheating on father. Pa! The crisp sound of a slap interrupted Yi Fengru's voice. Yi Fengru cried out in pain. Blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. But he wasn't angry, instead he laughed. Yiqing Luo stood in front of him at a close distance. Her fiery red dress fluttered along with the hurricane, like a butterfly flapping its wings and about to take flight. However, in the next instant, the hurricane surrounding her suddenly formed a stream of air that struck Yi Fengru's body. Yi Fengru didn't even have time to scream. He was sent flying backward. Yiqing Luo's expression was cold. Her pair of charming eyes were filled with anger and chilliness. His black hair fluttered in the wind as he bared his fangs and brandished his claws. At this moment, she was like a fairy descending from the heavens. It was a majestic aura that reigned above the world. It made everyone's hearts tighten, as they had an impulse to crawl beside Yiqing Luo's feet. What kind of powerful aura was this? A 15-year-old girl actually had such a heaven-defying aura. Ha ha ha. Yi Fengru fell to the ground, laughing even more carefreely. I thought, you really don't care about this matter. Ha ha ha. I know your weakness, Yiqing Luo. What you don't want to hear, I will tell you. Yi Fengru. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? Yiqing Luo's cold tone was full of murderous intent. What did Yi Fengru say about her? She didn't care about people who were unimportant to her. But her mother was her reverse scale. Chapter 2078. Yi Fengru was fearless. Alright, kill me, haha. Anyway, Qian has already died in your hands. I don't want to live alone. Suddenly, his expression turned cold and his tone changed. But before I die, I will make all the shameless things that your shameless mother has done public. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold. Suddenly, streams of powerful airflow surged around her body, like a whirlpool, rolling like a tide. At this moment, those bright and alluring eyes seemed to be dyed with a blood-red color. Yi Fengru's laughter stopped abruptly. He was extremely far away from Yiqing Luo. When Yiqing Luo's body was surrounded by one after another whirlpool, Yi Fengru was directly knocked away by that whirlpool. Yi Fengru's laughter stopped abruptly. His face turned extremely pale in an instant. Yiqing Luo's strength. It was so powerful that it was beyond his expectations. Heavens! 7th Miss Yi is a Sky Xian Supreme Master. What a powerful strength. Supreme Being Expert. Supreme Being. 7th Miss Yi seems to be only 15 years old. A 15-year-old Sky Profound Overlord. There is only one person in the world, only one. Has everyone forgotten that Miss Yi's 7th young lady has only just begun her cultivation this year? The whole audience was silent because of this sentence. That's right. How could they forget? In the past 15 years, Yiqing Luo was famous for being a waste. In other words, Yiqing Luo had cultivated from a waste to a Sky Profound Overlord in just a few months. In less than a year? F***CK. They wouldn't believe it even if they were beaten to death. They would rather believe in another folk legend. Yiqing Luo was actually pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, hiding her true profound grade until she found the big backer, the Overlord. Then she dared to boldly tell everyone about her strength. On this side, everyone was so shocked by Yiqing Luo that they couldn't regain their senses. The Baiming clan's face was pale, struggling to rush forward. 7th Miss, please have mercy, please have mercy. But she hadn't moved a step. However, Old Ancestor clutched her shoulders tightly. The force was so great that it seemed as if it wanted to dislodge her shoulders. Baiming struggled madly, his face twitching in pain. Ancestor, I beg you to let me go. Ruer is my life, I can't lose him. No matter how much Baiming cried or screamed, Old Ancestor kept a gloomy face, and refused to let go of his hand no matter what. Under the pressure of the powerful dark force, Yi Fengru was forced to roll on the ground several times. His chest couldn't withstand such pressure. and he felt a metallic taste in his throat as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Yi Fengru propped himself up on a rockery in the garden and fiercely wiped off the blood at the corner of his mouth. He laughed heartily. Yiqing Luo, don't tell me. You're not interested in your mother's matters. Do you know the reason why you were ostracized everywhere in the Yi clan? He leaned against the fake mountain and panted heavily. He enunciated each word clearly, and his voice spread to every corner of the Three Springs sect with his profound qi. Yiqing Luo, your mother is a fickle female prostitute. She was the legal wife in the Three Springs sect and was unwilling to be lonely, so she hooked up with men outside. In the end, she accidentally got pregnant. At that time, her father was in another continent, and it had been more than 2 months. The pregnancy timing didn't match at all. Chapter 2079. There was no need for Yi Fengru to continue. Everyone was able to imagine it. It was nothing more than Yiqing Luo's mother making use of that night to turn the child in her belly into Yi Tianquang's child. Everyone looked at Yiqing Luo with a bit of inquisitiveness and scrutiny. But Yiqing Luo's expression was still calm, as though anything, to her, was of no importance. Yi Fengru explained the matter in detail. He wanted to see Yiqing Luo unable to accept it, and on the verge of collapse. But Yiqing Luo still had this indifferent expression. On the contrary, Yi Fengru's emotions were getting more and more unstable. He clenched his fists, the veins on his forehead bulged, gritted his teeth and continued. You're a bastard who doesn't even know who your father is. For so many years, you have occupied the position of the Yi family's first wife's daughter, Three Springs sect's young matriarch. On what basis? Based on your fickle, shameless mother who deceived your father? His questioning made everyone present breathe cautiously, for fear of making the slightest sound and becoming the target of public criticism. Everyone's mood was both complicated and excited. The complicated thing was that there was a lot of information in Three Springs sect that they had heard about. If this matter spread too far in the world of martial artists in the future, there was a high possibility that they would be blamed for it. As the saying goes, the more you know, the earlier you die. What was exciting was that the information they heard today was the rumored descendants of the Divine Emperor's Tombkeeper, the Three Springs sect, the secret history of one of the 4 major sects. This kind of thing, if it happened on a normal day, it would be absolutely impossible to find out this kind of secret history even if they tried their best to inquire about it. Everyone's heart was tightly clenched along with the confrontation between Yi Fengru and Yiqing Luo. Just when everyone thought that Yiqing Luo would absolutely go berserk again and beat Yi Fengru up. But, giggle giggle. Giggle giggle. A coquettish laughter broke the stiff atmosphere. That laughter, unbridled and arrogant. There was a kind of arrogant and fearless feeling. This laughter. It made Yi Fengru's hair stand on end when he heard it. Yi Fengru, is there something wrong with your brain? Yiqing Luo shot a contemptuous glance at him. Her eyes were filled with disdain. As you said, in these 15 years, Yi Tianquang simply didn't treat me as his daughter. I'm just a person who doesn't even know my father. Then, why, until now, am I still the young sect master of the Three Springs sect? Yiqing Luo's words had just ended. Yi Fengru's face darkened. Yiqing Luo beamed as she continued. You asked me why, then I'll tell you. Because Yi Tianquang insisted on making me the young matriarch. Or perhaps, it's not that your brain has been caught in the door, but Yi Tianquang's brain has been caught in the door. Yi Fengru was left speechless. Everything that Yiqing Luo said was true and no one was able to refute it. Everyone came to a realization. That's right, if Yiqing Luo wasn't a member of the Yi family, Yi Tianquang would have long known that Yiqing Luo wasn't his biological daughter. Then why did he allow Yiqing Luo to be the young sect matriarch for so many years? Don't say anything, the young matriarch must be the first wife's daughter. Just take the point that Yiqing Luo was a waste without any cultivation foundation. Yi Tianquang had enough reason to choose a new young matriarch. But Yiqing Luo had been the young matriarch for a whole 15 years. Unless Yi Tianquang's brain had really been caught in the door. Chapter 2080. Yi Fengru didn't expect Yiqing Luo to be able to respond calmly at this moment. And her response made his words stuck in his throat. His face was ashen, and his scarlet and crazed eyes were wide open like copper bells. His whole body was taut and his muscles were distinct. After a long while, he squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. How would I know what father is thinking? But you are not from the Yi family. This is an indelible fact. Yiqing Luo raised her brows and sneered. The indifference on her face and the disdain in her eyes made the surrounding crowd believe Yiqing Luo's words without a doubt. Their gazes towards Yi Fengru were filled with suspicion. Old grandmadam didn't wait for Yiqing Luo to speak and said, "Seventh girl, what second brother said is true. You are indeed not a child of the Yi family." She was the only elder in the Yi family, and also the most senior elder. Her words were more convincing than Yi Fengru's. Old grandmadam swept a glance at everyone and sighed softly. That year Tian Kuang didn't know that you are not his daughter, but eighth brother's birth. That year, they thought that Yiqing Luo's mother was pregnant with Yiqing Luo, so they schemed to enter her courtyard. But after 8 months, Yiqing Luo's mother unexpectedly gave birth prematurely. The first to come out was Yiqing Luo. After Yiqing Luo was carried out by the midwife, they discovered that there was another child in her womb. But because it was a premature baby, Yi Fengyu's condition was very bad. After Yi Fengyu was born, he was on the verge of death, as though he would die any time. This was the son of the Yi family. How could old grandmadam bear to let her son die at birth? More importantly, on the few young masters and young ladies of the Yi family, old grandmadam hadn't found one with the imprint of the future patriarch. This son might get the inheritance of the patriarch, the imprint of the god emperor. Hence, old grandmadam made use of the Yi family's ancestral forbidden art, hoping to use the blood of her twin sister, Yiqing Luo, to cast the forbidden art to save Yi Fengyu. But the forbidden art failed. Because Yiqing Luo's blood and Yi Fengyu's blood were totally incompatible. The two of them were not real siblings. This caused the old ancestor and Yi Tian Kuang to be endlessly shocked. He couldn't believe it. They were born from the same stomach, so why weren't they brother and sister? In the end, Yi Tian Kuang could only use his own blood as a primer to let the old ancestor use a forbidden technique to save Yi Fengyu's life. Yi Tian Kuang's blood could fuse with Yi Fengyu's, and the Yi clan's forbidden technique could also succeed. This was enough to prove that Yi Fengyu was Yi Tian Kuang's flesh and blood. There was no doubt about it. But Yi Fengyu and Yiqing Luo's blood could not merge. In other words, Yiqing Luo was not Yi Tian Kuang's flesh and blood. Born of the same parents, but not of the same bloodline? How is this possible? Your Yi family doesn't want Madame Yiqing Luo to inherit the position of patriarch, so there's no need to weave such a ridiculous lie, right? That's right. Who would believe such words? Madame Yiqing Luo doesn't care about the sovereign's position, all right? Don't forget that Madame Yiqing Luo also has her own power. The Yi clan's face is too ugly. All kinds of discussions interrupted old grandmadam's recollection. This kind of thing was really too bizarre. No matter who it was, they couldn't believe such words. Looking at old grandmadam's attitude towards Yiqing Luo from the beginning to the end. Chapter 2081. Everyone had long been brainwashed by Yiqing Luo's heroic feat of forcing the dark forces to retreat and saving the West continent from the abyss of suffering. No matter what old grandmadam said, everyone's heart was still on Yiqing Luo's side. Immediately, one by one, they belittled the Yi family. It was simply unbearable to listen to. Old grandmadam's face darkened bit by bit. Her breathing also became hurried at this moment. She suppressed the anger in her chest. To say this kind of thing in public not only let everyone ridicule Yi Tian Kuang for being cuckolded, it also let everyone ridicule the entire Three Springs sect. But now that things had come to this, she had no other choice. She would rather Three Springs sect become a laughingstock, and absolutely not willing to see Three Springs sect fall into the hands of an outsider. Old grandmadam tightened her grip on the walking stick and coughed hard. A powerful pressure enveloped the entire garden in an earth-shattering manner. It also successfully suppressed the noise in the garden. Old grandmadam cleared her throat, looking at everyone with a gloomy expression. How would I joke about such a thing? That day after I used the forbidden art, I suffered from the backlash, and went into closed-door cultivation to recuperate for more than half a month. After I came out, I then found out. Three Springs sex matriarch's wife had long colluded with men outside, secretly. As old grandmadam spoke, her voice choked, every word seemed to be filled with endless anger and helplessness. Yes, seventh girl came out from that woman's belly. Old eight also came out from that woman's belly. Tian Kuang had asked the midwife who delivered them, and was indeed able to confirm this point. The only thing that can explain this point is that that woman, during the month when Tian Kuang was not at home, she slept with other men and got pregnant. After that, when Tian Kuang came back, she schemed to lure him into her room, and got pregnant again. Other than this explanation, there was no other way to explain this strange phenomenon. What was going on? Old grandmadam still felt extremely strange when she recalled it. As for why you are the young matriarch of Three Springs sect, all this can only be clarified by asking your mother. Old grandmadam's gaze looked towards Yiqing Luo. After Tian Kuang found out that you are not his biological daughter, he flew into a rage and wanted to kill you. It was your mother who stopped Tian Kuang. Your mother and Tian Kuang talked for 2 whole hours in the study room. In the end, Tian Kuang let you go and announced to the public that you were the young sect master of the Three Springs sect. Because of this, I have argued with Tian Kuang for a long time, but Tian Kuang's attitude was unyielding, so I could only compromise. The old ancestor paused, and a cold and complicated light flashed across her sinister eyes. Seventh girl, your mother is long dead now, and Tian Kuang is also. I don't know what exactly they talked about in the study back then. After the old ancestor finished speaking, the entire garden was silent. No one spoke to break the silence at this moment. They started to look at Yiqing Luo, as their eyes were filled with sympathy and pity. The old ancestor said it so clearly and clearly, regardless of whether it was real or fake. To Yiqing Luo, this was a heavy blow. Yi Tiankuang and Yiqing Luo's mother were already dead. No matter what the truth was, as soon as the old ancestor said those words, Yiqing Luo's identity, she would no longer be the 7th daughter of the Yi family, and would no longer be able to have any connection with the Three Springs sect. Moreover, Yiqing Luo's past, it would also smear a stain on her life. Everyone sighed in their hearts. Chapter 2082. Everyone's thoughts were running wild. However, Yiqing Luo was still calm, and there was no change in the expression on her face. She stood there lazily. The strong wind around her fluttered her fiery red dress. It made the beautiful woman look even more beautiful than before. After a while, the young lady's long eyelashes moved. Everyone's heart trembled along with him. They were guessing what method Yiqing Luo would use to retaliate. Yiqing Luo suddenly raised her eyes. Her long and narrow eyes were overflowing with color, as though it was decorated with thousands of stars, sparkling brightly. Her footsteps moved. Her figure flashed in front of everyone. Only an afterimage could be seen. Yiqing Luo's figure had appeared on the stage. She stood beside old grandmadam, tilted her head and looked at old grandmadam with a warm smile. Old grandmadam, are you done? If you are, go to the back and sit down. Don't delay the auspicious time of the succession. The entire crowd was silent again. No one had expected this. After experiencing old grandmadam's words to draw a clear line between her and the Yi family, Yiqing Luo was still thinking about the patriarch's succession ceremony. Didn't she understand old grandmadam's intention? Or perhaps, she wanted to play dumb and inherit the patriarch's position first? Old grandmadam was stunned. Yiqing Luo's reaction was really out of her expectations. After being stunned for a while, old grandmadam stared at the smiling young lady and said with a steely face, 7th girl, Three Springs sect doesn't belong to you, you can't force it. There was a hint of threat in her words. Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly. But old grandmadam, what else do you think you can use to stop me? Her eyes curved into crescents as she smiled, like a cunning fox. Between her brows, there was a teasing smile. According to old grandmadam's story, Since I'm not from the Yi family then, I don't need to respect the Yi family's elders, she said with a smile. So I must let the succession ceremony continue. How can old Grand Madam stop me? You. The elder ancestor's expression turned ugly. Even if you don't have the blood of the Yi family flowing in your body, you've grown up in the Yi family for the past 15 years. You've called me elder ancestor for 15 years. Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows disapprovingly. So what? The girl's actions were clearly very normal. However, for some reason, the old ancestor's heart tightened. Instinctively, he took a step back. You want to destroy the Three Springs sect? Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? Old Grand Madam's voice tightened as she stared at Yiqing Luo as she questioned angrily. I don't have the blood of the Yi clan flowing in my veins, so even if I kill Yi Fengru and you, I won't be struck by lightning, right? Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she laughed mischievously. She raised her hand and casually flipped her hair. Her every movement was extremely lazy and full of the charm of a young girl. Unbridled and flamboyant, she was like a poppy, making it impossible for anyone to take their eyes off her. Old Grand Madam's expression instantly turned gloomy. Yiqing Luo. Today I'm here, don't you dare to snatch away the inheritance rights of Three Springs sect. Her sinister eyes swept towards the direction of her side. A white shadow flashed past. He saw the sect's elder standing in between Yiqing Luo and Old Grand Madam. Chapter 2083. Yiqing Luo raised her brows and smiled enchantingly. Did I say that I want to participate in the worship process? You. The sect elder choked for a moment and straightened his face. If you don't participate in the worship process, you can't proceed with the patriarch's succession ceremony. This is the rule set by the Three Springs sect ancestors. Yiqing Luo smiled even brighter. I didn't say that I won't participate in the worship process. The sect elder's face sunk. Yiqing Luo, are you toying with this elder? Yiqing Luo glanced at him disapprovingly, insolently and arrogantly. Teasing? What do you have that is worth me teasing you? His blunt words caused the onlookers to roar with laughter. The sect elder's face was filled with gloomy clouds. His hands under his sleeves clenched into fists. It had been 100 years since anyone dared to speak to him in this manner. This young lady dared to be so insolent. Thinking of the supreme aura she released earlier, the sect elder's eyes were covered with a layer of coldness. At the age of 15, she had already stepped into the sky profound realm. She was indeed a rare genius in the world. If this young lady was from the Yi family, as the sect elder of Three Springs sect, he would be deeply gratified. But this young lady was not from the Yi family. This kind of talent would only bring misfortune to the Yi family. If they didn't eliminate the roots, it would bring endless harm to Three Springs sect. The sect elder's gaze towards Yiqing Luo was filled with murderous intent. This murderous intent was fleeting, but Yiqing Luo still sensed it. Yiqing Luo sneered in her heart and swept a disdainful glance at the sect elder. If the sect elder wanted to make a move on her, she didn't mind using the sect elder as a practice target. She could tell. This sect elder's profound grade was also in the sky profound realm. His grade was about 3rd or 4th grade. Although after the profound sky realm, the gap between each grade was as wide as the heavens. But Yiqing Luo felt that since it was a practice target, this difference was just right. But before that, she had to settle the sect leader's succession ceremony first. She walked past the sect elder and walked directly to the altar. Sect elder, please don't waste everyone's time. Everyone here has come from their busy schedules to attend this succession ceremony. As the sect elder of the Three Springs sect, you are disgracing the name of the Three Springs sect by wasting everyone's time. The sect elder was so angry that he strode toward the altar. I've said it before. You're not a descendant of the Three Springs sect. You have no right to inherit the Three Springs sect. He stretched out his hand, wanting to stop Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo took a small step back and gave a low laugh. Sect elder, when did I say that I want to inherit Three Springs sect? The sect elder was taken aback. The onlookers were also stunned. It seemed like Yi Qingluo had indeed never mentioned that she was going to inherit Three Springs sect from the start. However, she had been urging the succession ceremony to continue. Wasn't he going to inherit the Three Springs sect? Yi Qingluo didn't bother about everyone's dazed gazes. Her hand, facing a certain point in the sky, opened up slightly. The young lady stood against the light. Her beauty was not as arrogant and wanton as before. Instead, there was a kind of extremely gentle warmth. That pair of wanton and devilish charming eyes. At this moment, it was filled with a deep smile. The smile on her red lips was bright and radiant. Such a Yi Qingluo. It was everyone's first time seeing it. Their hearts were inexplicably agitated. The young lady's fair jade-like hands slipped out from her sleeves. Slender fingers stretched towards the sky. Chapter 2084. Everyone was dumbfounded. Who was Yi Qingluo talking to? Future patriarch? Wasn't she talking to herself? Everyone looked towards the direction where Yi Qingluo stretched out her hand. They saw a dazzling ray on the horizon, adding a gorgeous color to the entire sky. Carrying a majestic and powerful force, it descended from the sky. That was a leopard beast with shiny black fur. The leopard beast's body was extremely sturdy, about 3 to 4 times the size of an ordinary leopard beast. A pair of black eyes, extremely vigilant, with a strong warning color. Dong! The black leopard beast landed on the ground. 4 huge leopard claws stepped out 4 strong air currents. The dust on the ground stirred up. A hurricane suddenly arose. The sharp claws that stepped on the ground, like a sharp blade, shining with a sharp luster. And the most shocking thing was, it was the 2 people sitting on the back of the leopard beast. A man and a woman. When the leopard beast stabilized its footsteps, it proudly swept its eyes around. After confirming that there was no danger, the leopard beast slowly crouched down, lowering its body. 2 figures slowly came down from the leopard beast. The young man was dressed in a navy blue luxurious brocade robe, his black hair neatly tied up, secured by a white jade crown. His figure looked somewhat slender, but also tall and slender. Perhaps it was because of this period of experience. Or perhaps it was because of the dignified and noble clothes on him. The young man's entire aura had an earth-shaking change. His aura was fully unleashed, dignified and luxurious. Behind the youth was a young girl dressed as a plain-colored servant girl. Although she was a servant girl, but looking at the pace that followed the young man, steady and powerful, graceful figure, thousands of postures. No matter how one looked, she was definitely not an ordinary servant girl. Just these 2 people, the moment they appeared, attracted everyone's attention. Old 8th. When old Grand Madam saw that young man, a trace of disbelief immediately surfaced on her dark face. She stood up abruptly with the help of her walking stick, her body swaying, extremely shocked. Old Grand Madam. Yi Fengyu cupped his hands, respectfully bowing in the direction of old Grand Madam. Neither servile nor overbearing attitude made old Grand Madam stagger a step back. Lady Biming supported him in time, unable to believe her own eyes. This young man, a young man with such a majestic and powerful aura. It was Yi Fengyu, the youngest of the Yi clan. Yi Fengyu. Yi Fengyu didn't wait for old Grand Madam's reaction as he withdrew his hand and walked straight towards Yi Qingluo. When he saw Yi Qingluo, Yi Fengyu's youthful face finally revealed a smile that resembled that of a child. Sister. He called out in a daze, his heart full of excitement. Yi Qingluo walked in front of him. A 15-year-old boy was at the age of growth. The current Yi Fengyu was 2/3 taller than Yi Qingluo's head. Yi Qingluo had to raise her head to look at him. Shall you go ahead? Yi Qingluo smiled as she caressed Yi Fengyu's head, her eyes filled with warmth. Yi Fengyu nodded vigorously. The young man with a majestic aura in front of everyone just now. The minute he stood in front of Yi Qingluo, he became the little brother next door. Anyone could tell that the relationship between Yi Qingluo and Yi Fengyu was extremely deep. Yi Qingluo put her hands behind her back, tilted her head and looked at the sect elder with a smile that didn't look like a smile. Sect elder, Xiaoyu is the direct bloodline descendant of Three Springs sect. Do you have any objections to let him inherit the position of sect master? The sect elder had been in closed-door cultivation for such a long time, he didn't know much about the outside world. Listening to Yi Qingluo's words. Chapter 2085. The position of the Three Springs sect leader was not something that could be easily inherited. Who told Yi Qingluo that as long as she was a descendant of the Three Springs sect, she would be able to inherit the position of sovereign? How could an immature child inherit the position of the sect master? The sect elder's face darkened. Of course, even if you have any opinions, it has nothing to do with me. The sect elder had just spat out 2 words when he was covered by Yi Qingluo's disapproving voice. The voice of the sect elder was stuck in his throat. He couldn't go up or down. His face turned red. Yi Qingluo continued to smile. Old grandmadam, do you have anything else to say now? The old ancestor's eyes were filled with shock as he stared at Yi Fengyu, unable to recover for a long time. She remembered. After Yi Qingqian led the remnants of the dark forces and joined hands with Yi Fengru to invade Three Springs sect. As Yi Qingluo's biological brother who had always been doted on, Yi Qingjian vented her anger on Yi Fengyu. Yi Fengyu's situation was extremely miserable. She had always thought that Yi Fengyu had died in Yi Qingqian's hands. Unexpectedly, not only did Yi Fengyu not die, on the contrary, he was no longer like a child who couldn't grow up. Instead, he was extremely dignified and capable of shouldering great responsibilities. The old ancestor's heart trembled fiercely. No. I, as an elder of the Three Springs sect, nominate Old Eighth as the new sect leader. The old ancestor stared at Yi Fengyu, his voice trembling. Yi Fengyu was a direct descendant of the Three Springs sect. Yi Qingqian was no longer considered as a member of the Three Springs sect. Yi Fengru, his appearance was neither human nor ghost. He also had the infamy of killing his own father and forcing the abdication of the throne. He had also joined an underworld power. His reputation had long since been ruined. Now, only Yi Fengyu could shoulder this great responsibility. Even if Yi Fengyu wasn't mature enough. As a grandmother, she could still live for a few more years. She could assist Yi Fengyu and help him grow faster. Furthermore, Yi Fengyu had Yi Qingluo as his backing. Yi Qingluo was going to inherit the position of sovereign. The old ancestor couldn't accept it at all. She had been resisting the urge to stop Yi Qingluo. It was because, only by keeping the secret that Yi Qingluo wasn't a member of the Yi family, to make Yi Qinglu the patriarch of Three Springs sect. Only then could the Three Springs sect's reputation be stabilized. And only then could the Three Springs sect return to its rightful status and nobility. In fact, it was just as the Baiming clan had said. Yi Qingluo had the ability to lead Three Springs sect to become the leader of the 4 major sects. Therefore, the elder had been suppressing the unwillingness in his heart. Now the successor was a member of the Yi family. Furthermore, he could make use of Yi Qingluo's power and reputation. This was the best of both worlds. How could the old ancestor have any objections? No. I don't agree. The sect elder's face darkened. Had it been too long since he, the sect elder, appeared in the Three Springs sect, causing the current Three Springs sect to be so disrespectful? He felt that his dignity as the leader of a sect had been trampled on by a junior. If he allowed these juniors to be arrogant and decide everything for the Three Springs sect, he would be doomed. Then why would he, as an elder of the sect, come here? The more the sect elder thought about it, the angrier he got. How can you be so perfunctory when it comes to inheriting the patriarch's position? Changing this and that. Is it a joke for you to assume the position of Three Springs sect's patriarch? He frowned and shot a sharp glare at old ancestor. We haven't seen each other for decades and you've become muddle-headed. Chapter 2086. The sect elder snorted coldly. The previous patriarch knew that Yi Qingluo was not a descendant of the Yi family, but still insisted on making her the young matriarch of Three Springs sect. This really makes me doubt if the current Yi family still has the ability to inherit the patriarch position. He paused and stared sharply at old grandmadam. So I have decided to stay in Three Springs sect for a few months, to investigate carefully, among the remaining descendants of Three Springs sect, who is the most suitable person to become the future patriarch. This. Old Grandmadam's face was ashen. She wanted to stop him but didn't know how. Listening to the sect elder. Apparently he had made up his mind. The sect elder flicked his sleeves and said coldly, "There's no need to say anything, I have made up my mind. Today's patriarch succession ceremony shall be." A contemptuous laughter. Extremely ethereal and ethereal. That laughter was as clear as pearls falling on a plate, extremely pleasant to the ears. But at the same time, it was pleasant to the ears. Bursts of sound rippled in the ears, giving off a strange feeling. Even the sect elder couldn't help but have goosebumps all over his body. Old Grandmadam, it actually doesn't matter if there is this sect elder in the patriarch's succession ceremony. Yi Qingluo's voice was arrogant and presumptuous. She slowly walked to the front of Yi Fengyu and looked at the sect elder with a smile, which didn't look like a smile. Old Grandmadam was stunned and quickly understood the meaning of Yi Qingluo's words. Wasn't Yi Qingluo's arrogance a little too much? Even if Yi Qingluo was already a Sky Profound cultivator. But after all, she had just stepped into Sky Profound first grade not too long ago, and was still not adept at controlling her profound energy. How could she go against the sect elder who had lived for 500 years? She thought that she didn't care about the sect elder's opinion. Could this succession ceremony really ignore the existence of the sect elder? Old Grandmadam wanted Yi Fengyu to become the new patriarch. But she didn't dare to disobey the sect elder in front of him, and didn't dare to go against the sect elder back then. Hearing Yi Qingluo's question, the grand elder could only remain silent. When the sect elder heard that, he was so infuriated that his white beard stubble puffed up. Yi Qingluo, since you're not a descendant of Three Springs sect, then Three Springs sect's internal affairs have nothing to do with you. Now get off the stage for this elder. Yi Qingluo tilted her head and looked at him. Someone who hasn't appeared in the past few decades and has never been in charge of Three Springs sect. Do you think you're qualified to say this? As she spoke, she looked at the sect elder with a disdainful smile. In recent years, the Three Springs sect's reputation has been declining. It's not only the imperial family who can easily cause trouble in the Three Springs sect. Even the servants of the other 4 great profound practitioner clans and clans dare to cause trouble in the Three Springs sect. The Three Springs sect had become a joke. Where were you at that time? Yi Qingluo's voice was very low. There was even a hint of laughter in his voice. When she said the last word, the sound of her voice fell. The entire garden was extremely quiet. The sect elder was also stunned and did not speak for a long time. When he came back to his senses, his face was red with shame and indignation. He couldn't believe that he was provoked by a junior to the point where he couldn't resist at all. His face was ashen as he replied angrily, "The Three Springs sect's reputation has declined. That's because of the previous sect leader's ability and the way he handled things. There's a huge problem. What does all of this have to do with me?" Chapter 2087. Yi Qingluo raised her brows. Her long and narrow eyes rippled with ridicule. But Three Springs sect's reputation has dropped, their status has plummeted. No matter which force it is, they can easily step on us. Her slender fingers touched her chin, her eyes curved. What's the difference between this and Three Springs sect heading towards destruction? The sect elder's face turned gloomy, his fists were clenched. You are talking nonsense. Looking at the past few days, Yi Qingqian led the dark forces to invade Three Springs sect, and made Three Springs sect become the assistants of the dark forces to invade the West Continent, almost destroying Three Springs sect's illustrious reputation. Yi Qingluo looked at the sect elder smilingly. But at that time, elder, where were you? You. The sect elder squeezed out a word from between his teeth, but couldn't spit out the next word. The crowd expressed that the amount of information was getting more and more explosive. Everyone looked at the sect elder with despise and disdain. In the past, the sect elder didn't appear anywhere. He carried the Three Springs sect's glory, and was a rare sky mystic overlord in Nirvana realm. No matter where he went, he would be envied and respected by everyone. Since when did people look at him with disdain and disdain? The sect elder bellowed. Yi Qingluo, you are an outsider. What right do you have to judge me? based on the fact that Three Springs sect was revived in my hands. Yi Qing Luo replied arrogantly. Sharp arrogance was released from Yi Qing Luo's body, without any concealment. The powerful and majestic aura overshadowed the sect elder's aura with absolute suppression. Yi Qing Luo raised her head. Her brows were filled with a lazy expression, but in her eyes, there was a gleam of brilliance, overflowing with youth. Sect elder, when Three Springs sect was in dire straits, you never appeared. To me, it really doesn't matter whether Three Springs sect has a sect elder or not. Yi Qing Luo didn't give any face to the sect elder. The young lady's devastatingly beautiful face was calm without any ripples. The long and narrow eyes were supposed to be enchanting and charming. However, the girl's aura was so cold and piercingly cold. The sect elder staggered a few steps back. His pair of flustered eyes stared at Yi Qing Luo in disbelief. He was so angry that he was trembling all over. His face was as black as charcoal. Yi Qing Luo, you've become a sky mystic overlord at such a young age. And you think you're so great that you can be lawless? The sect elder knew that there was no chance of winning if he were to bicker with this young lady. He sneered and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. I must teach you a lesson on behalf of the Yi family. You silly little girl who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Yi Qing Luo spat out a pooey. Was there a hole in the head of this sect elder? She kept saying that she was not a descendant of the Three Springs sect, and had no right to interfere with the internal affairs of the Three Springs sect. And now he was saying that he would teach her a lesson on behalf of the Yi clan? Didn't he find these words contradictory? Not waiting for Yi Qing Luo to complain in her heart. The sect elder's attack had already arrived. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased as she speedily retreated backwards, avoiding his attack. Chapter 2088. Tisk, so this is the so-called sect elder. I've learned something new today. After living for hundreds of years, he's only in the sky profound stage. Our boss Qing Luo had only cultivated for a few months, and she's already in the sky profound stage. No wonder this old man is jealous of our boss Qing Luo, relying on the fact that he's lived for hundreds of years, to bully a junior who had just started cultivating. This is the style of a sect elder. All sorts of ridicule were heard from the surroundings. The representatives from various powerhouses shook their heads in disgust. To the sect elder, what kind of humiliation was this? The second wave of attack which was launched towards Yi Qing Luo was completely frozen. There was no way for them to continue. However, among the crowd, there was another wave of voices. What the sect elder said isn't without reason. Since Yi Qing Luo is not the descendant of Three Springs sect, then she has no right to ask about Three Springs sect's matters. Who knows who the new patriarch of Three Springs sect is? It's not Yi 7th Mrs. Wrong, it should be Yi Qing Luo, and it's not her turn to make the decision. Who knows Yi Qing Luo and Yi family's 8th young master's close relationship? If Yi family's 8th young master becomes Three Springs sect's patriarch, it's no different from Yi Qing Luo becoming Three Springs sect's patriarch. The scene instantly became extremely chaotic. Due to the crowd's gossip, the sect elder could only swallow his anger. He had never expected this. The representatives who had always been fighting in the open and in the dark, contending for supremacy, they actually worked together for Yi Qing Luo? Yi Qing Luo totally didn't care about the outside world's discussions. She stretched out her hand and grabbed Yi Fengyu's wrist, pulling him to the front of the altar. Little Yu worshipped the heavens. Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered to waste time with those people. The most important thing now was to let Yi Fengyu finish the inheritance ceremony and return to the Mu family to recuperate. Yi Fengyu's injuries had not fully recovered. He needed at least another half a month to recuperate. This was the best outcome after Ghost Doctor had treated Yi Fengyu's injuries. Xiaochen did not know how long Yi Fengyu's willpower could hold out during the succession ceremony. Presumptuous. What right do you have to preside over the ceremony? The sect elder gnashed his teeth and roared. Off to the side, Yi Fengru furiously roared. Bastard. Yi Qing Luo, you're just a slut. You're exactly the same as that shameless mother of yours, little bastards born of cheap mothers. Don't even think about making Yi Fengyu the sect leader of the Three Springs sect. I will never agree. Suddenly he leaped up. It turned into a black afterimage, stirring up waves of air that surged in the air. In the air, Yiqing Luo could vaguely smell a strange smell. Her expression changed, and she quickly took out 2 pills from her fingertips. One of them slipped into Yi Fengyu's mouth. One of them slipped into Shi Ju's mouth. At the same time, the onlookers suddenly fell down one by one. The air was gradually covered with a layer of black smoke. Poison. He poisoned us. The onlookers reacted and immediately covered their mouths and noses. However, no matter how hard they tried not to breathe, the feeling of powerlessness from being poisoned would still corrode their entire bodies. In the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, everyone present were either sprawled on the ground or on their seats. The only people who were standing were Yiqing Luo and Yi Fengyu, who had unknowingly sat on Shi Ju's back and leapt into mid-air. Bastard! Today you won't be able to escape even if you have wings. Yi Fengyu laughed maniacally. In his hand was a black bottle. Chapter 2089. Yiqing Luo frowned. Yi Fengru's other identity was a dark medicine master. She knew that Yi Fengru would definitely take the opportunity to poison her and win. But Yiqing Luo didn't expect him to use such a sinister method. The target of the poison was not her. It was everyone present. Sister. Yi Fengyu was on the back of Shi Yan, calling out to her worriedly. Yiqing Luo had only fed him 2 antidote pills. He didn't see Yiqing Luo swallowing the pills. Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly. Shall you wait a while more? The inheritance ceremony will continue soon. Sister. Yi Fengyu's heart was shaken. At this time, Yiqing Luo was still thinking about his inheritance ceremony. She was obviously not his biological sister. Why, after knowing everything, would she still treat him so well without any hesitation? He looked at the tall platform, at the slender figure that was bursting with boundless power. He secretly swore in his heart. He must become stronger. He must make Three Springs sect the #1 sect. He wanted his sister to have a home of her own no matter what happened. Three Springs sect would always be his sister's backing. Yiqing Luo didn't talk to Yi Fengyu anymore. She narrowed her eyes and glanced around. Xiaochen had already analyzed the composition of the black smoke in the air in his mind after refining it 100 times. After confirming that these fainted people were not in danger, Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. These people were the representatives of the major forces in the West Continent. If they all died in Three Springs sect, no matter what the reason was, or who killed them, it would all be related to Three Springs sect. Moreover, so many people from the major forces had died in Three Springs sect. Another storm was about to be set off in the West Continent. Xiaoyu was about to take over Three Springs sect. Yiqing Luo couldn't let so many people die in Three Springs sect before it was in Xiaoyu's hands. Her gaze finally fell on the complacent Yi Fengru, who was laughing maniacally. Meeting Yiqing Luo's gaze, Yi Fengru laughed wildly. Bastard, you want to kill me? Just come at me. As long as you dare to touch me, I will let these people all die in Three Springs sect, ha ha ha. Yi Fengru naturally understood the consequences of these people dying in the Three Springs sect. This was the reason why he didn't choose the highly toxic powder immediately, causing everyone present to lose their lives. He wanted to make use of these people, threatening Yiqing Luo. He wanted to see Yiqing Luo kneeling in front of him begging for mercy. He wanted to see Yiqing Luo in a disheveled state, suffering from humiliation. Yiqing Luo glanced at him coldly as she smiled, her expression calm. Really? Are you trying to compete with me in speed? So, do you think it's faster for me to kill you or for you to poison these people? Yi Fengru's face paled. He stared vigilantly at Yiqing Luo. However, a red shadow flashed before his eyes. Before he could even react, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. A burst of profound energy slapped onto his chest. He moved his fingers and quickly tried to open the other bottle. But before he could do anything, Yiqing Luo's fingers had already grabbed onto his wrist. With several cracking sounds, Yi Fengru let out a pained scream. His entire face was contorted in pain. You deserve to die, do you know that? Yiqing Luo smiled faintly. Under that charming smile, bit by bit, she broke Yi Fengru's hand. The bottle in his hand fell into Yi Qingluo's hand. Chapter 2090. Yi Fengru was horrified. But he didn't even have the strength to struggle. He could tell that Yi Qingluo hadn't released her full strength. But, even if she didn't use her full strength, she did the same to him. He didn't even have the strength to resist. How strong was this slut? Yi Fengru couldn't figure it out. Although Yi Qingluo's mother was also a cultivator, but she was just a weak girl who only knew how to rely on Yi Tianquang. How could she give birth to such a pervert like Yi Qingluo? Pa! The crisp sound of a slap resounded through the quiet garden. Yi Qingluo's slap landed on Yi Fengru's face. Her expression was cold. Her charming eyes were suffused with a trace of coldness. Yi Fengru, if you insult my mother again, I will give you a slap, or give you a punch. In the end, she added another sentence. Curse in your heart, I will still hit you. Yi Fengru's face was swollen, blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. He stared fiercely at Yi Qingluo, his eyes filled with hatred. She could hear him cursing in his heart. I can't hear you, but from your appearance, it seems like you are cursing me, cursing my mother, so I will hit you. Yi Qingluo smiled, completely unreasonable. Immediately, she raised her hand and slapped the other side of his face. I think you are cursing me in your heart again. F***ck. Yi Fengru's ears were ringing from the slap. His cheeks were burning with pain. He cursed through gritted teeth. Yi Qingluo raised her brows, smiling. But her slender little hand, clenched into a fist, unceremoniously punched his stomach fiercely. Ah! Yi Fengru screamed, only feeling that his abdomen was pierced through. His internal organs seemed to be ruptured. His whole body fell straight to the ground. Yi Qingluo tilted her head and looked at him with a sneer. Didn't you think you can be arrogant after poisoning me? Come on, continue to be arrogant for me to see? Yi Fengru had no strength to move. Both his hands were broken by Yi Qingluo. Under Yi Qingluo's earlier punch, the slightest movement of her internal organs would cause a heart-wrenching pain. He couldn't move. He didn't dare to move. Hearing Yi Qingluo's words, he forced his eyes open. He had lost too much blood, and the pain was unbearable. He could no longer see the scene in front of him clearly. In his haze, he could only see the red-clothed girl standing in front of him. Her eyes were filled with mockery as she stared at him unblinkingly. All of a sudden, Yi Fengru felt as if something was tugging at his heart. It looked like it was trying to grab onto something. But in the next instant, his vision went black. Something surged in his mind. When his eyes regained clarity, once again, another slender and delicate figure appeared in front of him. This was Qianqian. Yi Fengru's cloudy eyes gradually emitted a black stream of air. His lips trembled slightly. He kept repeating the word Qianqian. He saw Zi Qianqian. He saw Zi Qianqian's tragic death. He saw Yi Qingluo standing beside Zi Qianqian, who was being devoured by the poisonous worms, laughing out loud and wantonly. The black energy in his eyes grew thicker. The malevolent expression on his face became more and more twisted and terrifying. Yi Qingluo, don't be complacent too early. This time round, the winner is still uncertain. Yi Fengru didn't know where the strength came from, but he suddenly slammed his palm on the ground. His body was like an arrow leaving the bow, scurrying into midair. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, a few deafening energy fluctuations were heard, enveloping the entire garden. Chapter 2091. Gravel splattered and dust billowed. The various powerhouses' representatives who had fallen onto the ground due to being poisoned were covered with tiny wounds after being splattered by those gravel. Some of the stronger powerhouses' representatives regained their consciousness under this kind of piercing pain. They wanted to avoid it, but the feeling of powerlessness made them unable to move at all. So it's like this. The young lady's clear voice, which seemed to be in deep thoughts, was transmitted into everyone's ears. The various powerhouses' representatives mustered up their last breath and looked towards the direction of the voice. Under the encirclement of gravel and dust, they saw a young lady dressed in red, still standing on the high stage, raising her head and looking towards a certain direction in the sky. It was Yi Qingluo. It was her. She was fine. She wasn't poisoned like them. Everyone's hearts inexplicably calmed down. As long as Yi Qingluo was still around, they would definitely be fine. Not knowing why, the other party was obviously a 15-year-old young lady, but they had developed such a strong reliance on this 15-year-old young lady. Swish, swish, swish. Accompanied by gravel splattering, the sound of the ground shaking. They saw the surroundings of the garden which had been leveled to the ground, as cultivators dressed in black night clothing scuttled out. One after another, there were at least 100 over people, surrounding the high stage which Yi Qingluo was standing on, tightly encircled. And those 30 to 40 people who had originally fallen onto the ground also climbed up. They laughed maniacally as they walked behind Yi Fengru, as they stared at Yi Qingluo viciously, as though they were looking at the meat on the chopping board. Yi Qingluo recognized these people at one glance. Weren't they the bunch who kept singing a different tune to the crowd, trying to incite the crowd's rhythm, and kept humiliating Yi Qingluo? Yi Fengru laughed loudly, and as he laughed, he coughed violently. Even after coughing out blood, he still couldn't stop laughing. Yi Qingluo, did you really think that I didn't have any tricks up my sleeves? So what if they are sky mystic overlords? Against them, can you still survive? Yi Qingluo didn't respond to Yi Fengru's words. She narrowed her eyes, as she carefully sized up the rows of black-robed men in front of her, who were obviously well-trained. This sizing up made Yi Qingluo had a huge shock. These killers, over 100 of them, were all Earth Mystic grade and above. The highest profound rank has already reached the 8th level of the Earth Profound rank. Where did these experts come from? Yi Qingluo had long guessed that it was impossible for Yi Fengru to come to the succession ceremony alone. The group of murderous killers who were constantly singing a different tune were Yi Fengru's men. But what Yi Qingluo did not expect was, apart from the group of assassins in the field, and there were so many teams with such powerful strength, it was impossible for Yi Fengru to find so many powerful helpers. Behind him, someone must be helping him. Or perhaps, it was exploitation. Profound practitioners of the Earth Profound realm. In the Nirvana realm, he could be said to be the target of all the major forces and clans. That person was able to train so many Earth Xian practitioners into such a well-trained team. From this, it could be seen that the strength of that person could not be underestimated. Yi Qingluo vigilantly searched for the leader among the 100 of them. However, he swept his gaze across everyone. He didn't see anyone who looked like the boss. Chapter 2092. This time round, the historians won't be coming. Yi Fengru gave an eerie sneer. Of course, if you still have the ability, and unleash the power which exceeds Nirvana realm's limit, then there's a possibility to summon the historians. His reply made Yi Qingluo's heart shiver. Her question just now was just a test. She really managed to find out the truth. These were all Earth Profound cultivators and above, not people from Nirvana realm. They came from Nirvana realm and above, a certain realm cultivator. Previously from Old Man Song, Dmo Xian and Yi Qian and the others, Yi Qingluo had a rough understanding of the different realms levels. Nirvana realm should be the lowest realm among all the realms. Those realms outside of Nirvana realm, such as the Dark Forces, Godless Island and the Upper Realm etc., the combined power of these places was much higher than Nirvana realm by many times. These 100 over black-robed men were not from Nirvana realm, and were all Earth Profound cultivators, so she wasn't surprised at all. But she wasn't surprised. She was curious. Curious which realm these people were from outside of Nirvana realm. The only thing she was sure of was, these 100 over people were absolutely not from the Dark Forces. They didn't have the profound yin qi from the Dark Forces on them. The only common point with the Dark Forces was, these black-robed men's imposing manner was the same as the Dark Forces, disgusting. Yi Qingluo even probed out a question. Yi Fengru knew that she was unable to use the power of her profound jade heart. More accurately, he knew that her profound energy was obstructed. He knew that she couldn't release the power which could attract the Heaven Dao Law. Looked like These people had done a thorough investigation on her. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly, as her lips curled into a teasing cold arc, raising her brows at Yi Fengru. Your preparation work is so sufficient. Looks like you've made up your mind to deal with me. Yi Fengru sneered. At least you know your own limits. He knew Yiqing Luo's sinister and cunning. Dragging the time would definitely give her a chance to turn the tables. He bellowed furiously. All of you go kill Yiqing Luo. The rest of you, follow me to kidnap all these old fogies away. Those killers who were originally mixed in with the guests laughed sinisterly as they raised the weapons in their hands, charging towards Yiqing Luo. Immediately following that, those 100 over-earth profound cultivators also unleashed their valiant imposing manner as they surrounded Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo could tell from these people's attacks earlier. The Earth Xian experts of the Nirvana realm were not on the same level as these people. Their battle techniques, attack speed, and aura far surpassed those of the Nirvana realm. Over 100 people swarmed forward. Even if she was a Sky Xian supreme martial artist, she would not be able to hold on for long. Sister! Yi Fengyu shouted in panic. He was just about to ride on Shiju and rush down. A beam of dark light blocked his way. Yi Fengru's malevolent face appeared in front of Yi Fengyu. My good eighth brother, we've never crossed hands before. Today, second brother shall see, after not seeing you for so many days, just what kind of realm has eighth brother grown to. Yi Fengru's palm wind moved, as an irresistible profound energy directly pressed down on Yi Fengyu's face. Yi Fengyu's expression congealed, as his legs tightened on Shiju, as he backhanded a palm strike. Both palms met, as the air instantly exploded into bursts of profound waves. Chapter 2093. Yi Fengru looked at Yi Fengyu in astonishment. You're already at the Earth Profound Realm? Yi Fengyu's face was a bit pale. He placed one hand on Shiju's back and tried hard to adjust his breathing. Second brother, not everyone is standing in the same spot. No matter what happens, you should look forward. If you keep binding yourself and living in the past, you will never be able to walk out. He was hinting at something. Yi Fengru naturally understood. After second brother kills that little slut Yiqing Luo, second brother will look forward properly. Yi Fengru's eyes were covered with black qi. A piercingly cold light flashed. He pounced at Yi Fengyu again. Yi Fengyu furrowed his brows and suppressed the discomfort in his body. He evaded Yi Fengru's attack. Second brother, don't be so stubborn. Don't you know that you're not only destroying yourself, you're also destroying the Three Springs sect? Without Qianqian, I have lost everything. Other than Qianqian, I don't want anything else. It would be even better if they were destroyed. Destroying it is even better. Yi Fengru howled madly. Yi Fengyu's complexion became increasingly pale. Even his lips had become sickly pale. Yiqing Luo, who was surrounded by over 100 top exponents, started to find it strenuous. The problem with the profound heart jade caused her profound strength to only be able to be controlled at the border of the sky profound realm. A profound sky sovereign expert did indeed have the ability to fight against 100. However, facing these high-level profound practitioners that came from other planes, even if she could release the power of her profound jade heart without restraint, she might not be able to gain the slightest bit of advantage in the hands of these 100 or so people. Not to mention that his strength was currently being suppressed by the profound jade heart. Yiqing Luo's situation was getting more and more dangerous. Too many things had happened recently. Yiqing Luo didn't even have the time to refine the pills. Because of this, the returning Heaven Yuan Serene Grass pill was not refined. The few sacred beasts in her family were still in a state of growth. Now only Shiju was able to fight. However, Shiju was protecting Yi Fengyu. Could it be? Asking Old Man Song to appear and help? Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips. Her heart was in a tangle. She was still unable to identify the origins of these people. If they rashly let Old Man Song appear, once he attracted the attention of these people, the secret of the Azure Dew bracelet might not be able to be kept. Bang! Just as Yiqing Luo was pondering over this, a person's weapon had already landed right in front of her. In front of Yiqing Luo, There was a flash of saber light and sword shadows. Yiqing Luo flicked her fingers, and the glower flame fan collided with that weapon. Gotcha! The man's weapon broke. Sharp wind blades shot out from the glowing flame fan and sliced through the neck of the attacker without any hesitation. Yiqing Luo didn't stop at all as a thick, profound energy burst forth from the glower flame fan, forcing those people who were surrounding her to retreat. She got a chance to catch her breath and looked up at the two figures flying in the sky. Yi Fengyu rode on Shiju, constantly fighting with Yi Fengru. No, to be more precise, Yi Fengyu didn't actually try to kill Yi Fengru. Although his attacks were fierce, he only had the thought of knocking Yi Fengru out, not taking his life. On the contrary, Yi Fengru's every attack was fatal. After all, Yi Fengyu's temperament was still immature. He still couldn't kill his own brother. What's more, the injuries on his body had not yet healed. When he crossed hands with Yi Fengru, he was at a disadvantage. As expected, just as Yiqing Luo was worried about Yi Fengyu, Yi Fengru suddenly flashed and shifted behind Yi Fengyu. Chapter 2094. Little Yu. Yiqing Luo suddenly jumped up. Her fingertips quickly shot out the glower flame fan like a spiral. Yi Fengyu immediately turned around, only to see Yi Fengru's blade coming down. Clang. Just as the blade was within a fist's distance, the glower flame fan was like a burning fire elf, colliding with that long blade. Yi Fengru only felt his arm go numb. The long blade fell to the ground. Yi Fengyu quickly retreated on Shiju. The feeling of picking his life back from the edge of death made him gasp for breath. Luckily his sister saved him. Thinking of his sister, Yi Fengyu immediately lowered his head to look at Yiqing Luo's direction. This look, Yi Fengyu's pupils suddenly constricted. Yiqing Luo then jumped up and threw the glower flame fan in her hand towards Yi Fengyu. His back was exposed in front of the group of black-clothed men. How would the black-robed men let go of such a good opportunity? Immediately one by one flocked forward, the profound chi waves in the air, gradually forming a twisted ripple. The moment Yiqing Luo threw out the glower flame fan, she reacted quickly, trying to avoid the black-robed men who sneak attacked from behind. But no matter how fast she was, because of the action of throwing out the glower flame fan, she was a step too slow. Swoosh, the blade light grazed her back. Her robe was cut. A bright red blood mark appeared on Yiqing Luo's fair skin. Yi Fengyu's eyes widened, roared out, "Sister!" Yiqing Luo groaned, knitted her brows and raised a palm wind. The palm was strong, like a surging wave, roaring angrily towards the group of sneak attackers. The black-robed men screamed, fell to the ground one after another, unable to get up. Yiqing Luo raised her head, looked coldly at Yi Fengyu. "Shut up. Let me see your courage as the Three Springs sex patriarch. Don't let me down." After saying that, she didn't look at Yi Fengyu again. Carrying her injured body, she once again rushed into the group of black-robed men. Yiqing Luo was wearing a red robe. Yi Fengyu couldn't see the wound on her back, how much blood was flowing. But he knew Yiqing Luo's injury was definitely not shallow. It was him. He was the one who injured his sister. If his sister hadn't done it to save him, it was impossible for Big Sister to be ambushed by those people. Yi Fengyu clenched his fists tightly, the veins on his forehead bulging. In his ears, it was as if Yiqing Luo's words were still ringing. "Don't disappoint me. Don't disappoint me. Don't disappoint me. Don't let me down." That was right. He could not let his sister down. He had already made up his mind that from now on, it would be his turn to protect his sister. But today, for the sake of someone who hurt her, she got hurt. From the moment Yi Fengru had hurt his sister, Yi Fengru was no longer his second brother. It was his enemy. He had said that he would protect his sister. "I want to be my sister's most solid support. No one is allowed to hurt my sister." Yi Fengyu's eyes burned with an intense desire to fight. The way he looked at Yi Fengru became ruthless and filled with killing intent. Yi Fengru was also taken aback by this look. Yi Fengru snorted disdainfully. "My good eighth brother, you can't stand seeing that little bastard injured? I say, don't tell me you like that little bastard?" Yi Fengyu didn't answer. The battle intent in his body continued to rise. That's your sister. Chapter 2095. Luan. Yifengru didn't even have time to say it. Boom! A violent fluctuation of xianqi rushed towards Yifengru like a hot knife through butter. Yifengru was still teasing Yifengyu when he saw Yifengyu suddenly attacking him. That powerful xianqi was obviously trying to take his life. Yifengru's face changed and wanted to avoid it. But it was too late. The palm strike, filled with rage, landed heavily on Yifengru's chest. Yifengru was like a broken kite, flew out and fell heavily on the ground, spitting out blood. He stared at Yifengyu in disbelief. The boy who had always been a yes man actually dared to fight with him? Actually really wanted to kill? No one is allowed to speak ill of my sister. Yifengyu's angry voice was covered with ice. Anger, monstrous anger, burned in his heart. He couldn't wait to completely burn everything that hurt Yiqing Luo. Yifengru gritted his teeth, then suddenly let out a hearty laugh. I just said a few words about that little bastard, and you really want to take my life? And you still dare to say that you don't have any improper thoughts about that little bastard? His eyes were scarlet, and he couldn't stop laughing. Yifengyu, that lowly bastard has a whole bunch of different men by her side. You alone aren't enough to enter her eyes, right? Ha ha ha. Yifengru's laughter. It was extremely harsh, piercing the murderous intent in Yifengyu's eyes. He flipped his palm and a long sword, unknowingly appeared in his palm. He rolled up a sword wave and gently waved it. The sword light was like a blooming firework, layer by layer, wave by wave rippled in the air. Yifengru's pupils contracted, the smile on his face also froze. That sword power followed the air, surged and shot straight, blocking all of Yifengru's escape routes. This is... Yifengru was terrified to the extreme, and he kept shrinking back. Yifengyu's eyes were cold, murderous intent filled his eyes. The sword light in his hand crisscrossed, without any intention of mercy. Bang bang bang. Boom boom boom. The sword power was full of power, the ground shook, under the sword chi, a thin crack appeared. Ah! Yifengru let out a terrified scream. He had nowhere to run, nowhere to run. She could only close her eyes and scream in fear. The strong wind brushed against his face like a sharp blade, constantly cutting his face. His body felt like it was being swept up by the sword wave, and was about to be devoured by it. But, after that powerful wave of chi swept past, Yifengru didn't feel the pain of being torn to shreds like he had imagined. He was overjoyed. Could it be that someone had come to save him? Yifengru's eyes snapped open, and he looked around with wild joy. The smile on his face froze again. There was no one around him. There was no so-called rescuer. He half knelt on the ground. The ground around him was densely packed with cracks like a spider web. It was the mark left by the sword wave. Yifengyu didn't kill him. The feeling of thinking that he was going to die, but being rescued from the jaws of death instantly surged into his heart. Yifengru lay limp on the ground, gasping for breath. He was overjoyed. As expected, Yifengyu couldn't bear to kill him. Yifengyu, that silly boy, still had affection for the Yi family in his heart. He couldn't bear to, and didn't dare. The feeling of surviving a disaster, and the feeling of being sure that Yifengyu didn't dare to kill him. Chapter 2096. Yifengru, you are the one who is dirty, don't think that everyone is as dirty as you. The young man's immature voice was filled with a cold murderous intent as he said it word by word. Yifengru was stunned as he raised his head stiffly and looked at the young man who was riding on the back of a black leopard with a long sword in his hand. The young man's aura was majestic, his navy blue brocade robe was fluttering in the strong wind. Yifengru suddenly had an ominous premonition spreading in his heart. Sister is right about one thing, a person's heart is dirty, whatever he sees is dirty. Yifengyu said coldly, I want to verify the truth of this sentence. Yifengru, let me dig open your heart and see if your heart is dirty. Just as he finished his words, Yifengyu's figure had already appeared in front of Yifengru. He raised his long sword and pointed it at Yifengru. Do you know why I didn't kill you now? Because I want to torture you. He said it very slowly, word by word, enunciated very clearly. The long sword in his hand, bit by bit, scratched Yi Fengru's skin. The cold touch faintly felt a stab of pain. There was a warm liquid, seeping out from the stab of pain. Yi Fengru didn't dare to move as he looked at Yi Fengyu in horror. He couldn't believe that this overbearing, devil-like young man in front of him. Could it be that easily soft-hearted, silly and stupid Yi Fengyu? It's him. Stimulated Yi Fengyu's growth? There was no time for Yi Fengru to think of other ways to escape. Yi Fengyu's torturing long sword had already fallen on his body, powerless to resist. The pain was unbearable. After Yi Qingluo was injured, she fought more and more bravely. Out of the 100 over black-robed men, there were only 60 over people left. The ground was littered with corpses, blood flowing everywhere. The remaining 60 over people, the more they fought, the more terrified they became. At this moment, their hearts were filled with curses. How could this young lady be so abnormal? One person, just one person, she killed half of them. This young lady was as cunning as a loach. Over 100 people tried to catch her, but still couldn't. Most importantly, the fan in the girl's hand was too strange and terrifying. In the blink of an eye, there would always be 1 or 2 people who fell stiffly to the ground. Even in death, they still did not understand. How did they die? They finally understood why their lord had sent so many people to capture a 15-year-old girl. More than 60 people did not dare to act rashly. Yi Qingluo gripped her glower flame fan tightly as she scanned the surroundings vigilantly. That beautiful face that could topple cities was extremely pale. Beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. She tensed her body and emotions, not daring to relax in the slightest. In the eyes of those 60 over black-robed men, Yi Qingluo's expression was calm. Apparently she could still fight for another few hundred rounds. But Yi Qingluo herself knew. She was about to run out of energy. She was just a person with a mortal body. Not to mention that they were facing so many profounders from other planes. It was already incredible that she could hold on until now. She could not reveal the fact that she had exhausted all of her strength. She could not give the other party any chance to take advantage of her. 60 over black-robed men, bit by bit, narrowed the encirclement of Yi Qingluo. They exchanged a look. She could not drag on any longer. Chapter 2097. Yi Qingluo was indeed abnormal. But, after such a long battle, Yi Qingluo was more or less exhausted. They didn't believe it. They couldn't even deal with a 15-year-old young lady after so many years. Go! One of the black-robed men gave his order. 60 over black-robed men covered the sky as they charged forward. Yi Qingluo's heart tightened when she heard that word. She gripped the glower flame fan tightly as her eyes squinted, reflecting a cold, murderous intent. The profound chi in her body revolved wildly. The young lady's red dress was like a dancing butterfly. Between the fluttering wings, the layers of profound chi ripples in the air continued to spread to the surroundings. This wave of profound chi swept. Those 60 over black-robed men's expressions congealed. They were just about to retreat. However, the spreading Xian wave suddenly disappeared in an instant. They were stunned. Yi Qingluo's profound chi had started to become unstable? Could it be? Yi Qingluo couldn't hold on any longer? This knowledge made the black-robed men ecstatic. They immediately raised their swords and charged towards Yi Qingluo's direction. How could they possibly miss such a great opportunity? Clang! Those few black-robed men who charged forward had yet to get close to Yi Qingluo. They only felt a numbing sensation on their arms. Their weapons left their hands. Following that, they could only see a red shadow appearing in front of them. They heard the sound of a fan opening and closing. The next moment, their bodies turned cold. After that, they lost all feeling. But those black-robed men who charged towards Yi Qingluo saw it with their own eyes. Those few black-robed men who were in front. Inexplicably, their limbs split. Blood splattered on their bodies. This scene made those black-robed men's faces revealed a horrified expression. This cruel method was done by this 15-year-old young lady? They didn't even see her make a move. As it turned out, The fluctuation of profound qi just now was caused by the sudden disappearance of qi. Yiqing Luo did it on purpose? Intentionally luring them to take the bait? Dozens of black-robed men became timid once again. It was a bloody scene. Even if it was them, they might not be able to do it expressionlessly. Yiqing Luo panted lightly as she quietly kept the silver threads back into the glower flame fan. She glanced at Yi Fengyu from the corner of her eyes. Seeing Yi Fengyu's current state, as well as Yi Fengru lying in a pool of blood, she relaxed. From the looks of it, Yi Fengyu had completely transformed. As long as Yi Fengyu could pass this trial today, it would be of great help to his future growth. Yiqing Luo withdrew her gaze and no longer worried about her brother. She's deliberately mystifying us. Look at her hand. Suddenly, one of the black-clothed men roared. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. Yiqing Luo's hand, which was holding the glower flame fan, was stained with traces of blood. It was a thin trail of blood. The silver threads were clearly exposed to their eyes. It was silver wire. Yiqing Luo made use of the silver threads to kill those black-robed men without anyone knowing. This knowledge gave the black-clothed people confidence. They looked at each other. Suddenly, a few black shadows scuttled towards Yiqing Luo. Following that, the other black-clothed men also dashed over quickly. They stared vigilantly at that strange fan in Yiqing Luo's hands. Stop. Suddenly, a soft but flat and emotionless voice resounded throughout the entire garden. This voice made the black-clothed men stop in their tracks. In the air, there was a ding-dang-dang sound. When they fixed their eyes on it, Chapter 2098. The young lady's figure was petite. Her head only reached Yiqing Luo's shoulder. Dressed in a pink long dress, a string of black bell bracelet on her wrist. Lolita's face, Lolita's appearance. But her pair of eyes were extremely sluggish, empty and lifeless. Shadow, they are very dangerous, stand behind me. Yiqing Luo immediately pressed on Mo Yuying's shoulder. Only you came? Where are they? They are still behind. Mo Yuying replied calmly. I sensed their presence, so I came over first. Yiqing Luo's hand, which was pressing on Mo Yuying's shoulder, stiffened. You. The corners of Mo Yuying's lips suddenly twitched. Although the smile was stiff, but Yiqing Luo could tell. Mo Yuying was smiling. This was the second time Yiqing Luo saw a different expression on Mo Yuying's face since the first time she met her. Although the smile was very stiff and awkward. But at least it was a smile. Not waiting for Yiqing Luo to regain her senses from this smile, Mo Yuying had already turned her head and looked at those black-robed men who were frozen on the spot. Her face had already resumed its expressionless and stiff look. How dare you? Nirvana Realm is a place where you can come. Mo Yuying looked at the black-robed men blankly. The black-robed men trembled. The next moment, all of them knelt on the ground. Island Sage. The black-robed men's forehead was pressed against the ground as they trembled. Island Sage? This group of black-robed men called Mo Yuying as Island Sage? What was going on? After Mo Yuying appeared, Yiqing Luo had some guesses in her heart. But when she saw this group of black-robed men really kneeling on the ground, being extremely respectful, Yiqing Luo was still stunned. Mo Yuying was actually a big boss. And a super big boss. Island Sage, just by hearing this name, she knew that he was absolutely a big shot. Why were there two of them beside her? They were all heaven-defying existences. Look, one Long Yunjian, that was a human dragon. Look at Qiao Jin, he was the Heaven Realm's Tian family's successor. Beside her, which great god was there? Why did she feel that although she had always been the boss, but her actual status was the lowest? If Yiqing Luo's words were to be known by everyone, everyone would definitely roll their eyes and say, "You're the future empress, your status is miles ahead of us." Mo Yuying tilted her head and looked at them blankly. You still know that I am your Island Sage? Island Sage, this is the Island Master's order. We also. The men in black wanted to cry but had no tears. If they had known that the person they were going to capture today was a friend of the Island Sage, they would not have come even if they were killed by the Island Master. The Island Sage was 1,000 times more terrifying than the Island Master. Mo Yuying shook the bell in her hand. The crisp tinkling sounds were extremely pleasing to the ear. But in the ears of the black-clothed men, it sounded like a fatal sound. They covered their ears in horror and began to tremble. All of them kowtowed with all their might, desperately begging for mercy. However, Mo Ying's expression did not change at all. She just tilted her head and didn't move. If not for those lifeless eyelashes that occasionally fluttered a few times, Yiqing Luo really felt that the Mo Ying standing in front of her was an exquisitely crafted wooden puppet. Shadow, leave them alive. Yiqing Luo realized Mo Ying's way of doing things. Although she wasn't sure what effect the tinkling of the bell had on those black-clothed men. But Yiqing Luo was very clear. The bell continued ringing. Chapter 2099. Mo Ying turned her head sideways and took a look at Yiqing Luo. After a while he slowly spat out a word. Oh. As soon as he finished speaking, the ringing stopped. The black-clothed men, who were howling in pain, kowtowing and rolling on the ground, collapsed into a pool of blood. The bell stopped ringing. The men in black immediately kowtowed. Lord Island Sage, please spare us. Lord Island Sage, please spare us. Mo Ying ignored them. Instead, he moved his body away. Yiqing Luo walked out from behind her. Slowly, he walked to the front of the men in black. You are from the Godless Island. Yiqing Luo's voice was very calm. This wasn't a question but a statement. From the moment they shouted, Island Master, Yiqing Luo had already guessed their identities. Godless Island. What kind of power was this? Why did they have to team up with people related to her time and again to deal with her? The men in black kneeled on the ground and shivered. No one dared to speak. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. When Mo Ying saw this, her tender little hands hugged Yiqing Luo's arm as she snorted coldly. This cold humph made Yiqing Luo unable to restrain her laughter. His face was calm and his eyes were empty. However, she did her best to pout her lips and put on an angry expression as she snorted coldly. She looked extremely adorable. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but pinched her cheek. Mo Ying raised her head in confusion. Her round, big and extremely beautiful eyes blinked. However, there was not the slightest bit of spirit in his eyes. Yiqing Luo sighed softly. She was clearly such a cute girl. On Mo Ying's body, just how many more secrets were hidden? Island Sage. When the black-robed men heard Mo Ying's cold snort, they trembled in fear. As soon as they spoke, Yiqing Luo's attention returned back to the black-robed men. He caught a glimpse of Yiqing Luo's expression. The man in black who was kneeling at the front responded quickly. Yes, yes, we are from Godless Island. This attitude made Yiqing Luo puzzled. On Godless Island, after all, it was the island master who had a higher status. Or was it Mo Ying, the island sage, who had a higher status? Your island lord. What's the reason for you to come over? Yiqing Luo cast aside all the other thoughts. The most important thing now was to understand Godless Island's intention. The black-clothed man was startled. Soon after, they looked at each other with troubled expressions. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. Since you refused to say, why not listen to me? The men in black lowered their heads, not daring to speak. I've come into contact with the people from the Godless Island a few times. You have cooperated with the underworld forces, and your target should be me. Now, he's using Yifengru to brazenly appear in front of the representatives of the Western continent's major powers. Clearly, he has no intention of hiding his identity. Yiqing Luo paused for a moment as her eyes flashed past a thought-provoking deep meaning. Although Godless Island is the #1 evil force in the Nirvana realm, it is the #1 island in the Nirvana realm. However, Godless Island should also belong to a force outside the Nirvana realm. Establishing the island in the Nirvana realm was already a very bold move, and it was very likely that the slightest mistake would cause it to be destroyed by the Heaven Tao. Now, is Godless Island planning to participate in the Dark Forces plan, so that the Heavenly Law historian will notice the existence of Godless Island? The black-robed men shook their heads hard. Their bodies kept on trembling as they took a careful look at Mo Ying by the side, before answering in a trembling voice. We don't know anything, we're only following orders. Chapter 2100. Per Island Lord's orders, to cooperate with Yi Fengru to sabotage you. Inheriting Three Springs Sect. The black-robed man replied with a trembling voice. Sabotage her inheriting Three Springs Sect? What did her inheriting Three Springs Sect have to do with Godless Island? Why did that old man want to sabotage Qing Lu as Three Springs Sect's patriarch? Mo Yuing popped her little head out from behind Yi Qing Luo and asked the question on her behalf. We don't know. The black-robed men shrunk their necks. Mo Yuing sneered unhappily again. You don't know? We really don't know. Island Sage, you know Island Lord's character very well. How would he possibly tell us the reason? Moreover, Island Lord's thoughts, we don't dare to guess. The black-robed men were so scared that they almost peed their pants. In their hearts, they all begged the Island Sage, who had an unpredictable temperament, not to vent his anger on them. Mo Yuing raised her wrist, her fingertips caressing the two furry little balls hanging on her shoulders. Her stiff and emotionless voice sounded faintly, since that's the case, there's no point in keeping you two. Island Sage, spare us. Island Sage, spare us. Ding ding dang dang. The black-robed men's pleading voices were suppressed by the crisp ringing of the bell. Just a moment later, those black-robed men who were begging for mercy hugged their heads and banged their heads on the ground continuously. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips, looking at the expressionless young lady who was shaking the bell in her hand. Her pink lips moved, but in the end, she didn't say anything. She knew. Mo Yuing was worried about something. Since Mo Yuing didn't want her to know about those matters on Godless Island, she didn't ask. In just half an incense's time, these black-robed men all banged themselves to death on the ground. A thick blood stench filled the air. In the garden, other than the sounds created by Yi Fengyu and Yi Fengru, there were no other sounds. Yi Qing Luo raised her head and looked towards Yi Fengyu's direction. This look made Yi Qing Luo slightly surprised, because Yi Fengru was lying on the ground, so abused that he couldn't be recognized. Yi Fengru's robe had already turned into strips under Yi Fengyu's sword power. Not a single part of his body was intact. It was covered with scattered sword wounds. It was a ghastly sight. Blood covered Yi Fengru's entire body. Yi Fengru looked as if he had been soaked in blood. It was clear that Yi Fengyu was ruthless. He looked at the expressionless youth riding on the Xian's back, who only had eyes for Yi Fengru, although this was a growth for Yi Fengyu. However, Yi Qing Luo had never thought of cultivating him into a devil. Yi Fengyu's current state. It was no different from turning into a demon. Yi Qing Luo took out 2 bottles from the profound phoenix ring and passed it to Mo Yuing. He pointed at the representatives of the major forces around him, who were either unconscious or had their eyes wide open. Mo Yang understood and took the bottle of medicine to cure those people. Yi Qing Luo took a step forward and walked towards Yi Fengyu's direction. Xiaoyu. Her voice was a little cold, and her steps were extremely slow. Yi Qing Luo could see it clearly. The young man's slender body stiffened when he heard her call. If you can still hear my voice, then turn around and look at me. Yi Qing Luo said calmly. The young man's stiff body seemed to be hesitating. Chapter 2101. The youth's young and tender face was no longer as stern and sinister as before. A pair of black eyes blinked in panic and helplessness. He looked like a child who had yet to grow up. He had done something wrong and was standing there uneasily, waiting for his punishment. Through him, Yi Qing Luo looked at the ground, at Yi Fengru, who had long lost his human form. Yi Fengyu noticed her gaze. Subconsciously, he moved in front of Yi Fengru, trying to block Yi Qing Luo's line of sight. Yi Qing Luo looked at him indifferently. You don't want sister to see him? Yi Fengyu was silent for a long time, then nodded. Why? Yi Qing Luo remained calm. Yi Fengyu lowered his eyes. His fingers, which were gripping the longsword, were so tightly clenched that his fingertips had turned white. She waited for a long time, but Yi Fengyu did not reply. Yi Qing Luo muttered to herself. You don't want me to see you make Yi Fengru into this state. Are you afraid that I will be afraid of you? Yi Fengyu's pupils constricted, and he didn't reply. Instead, he lowered his head even more. Yi Qingluo slowly walked towards him. Yi Fengyu wanted to retreat. However, after Shi Ju saw its master, its feet stopped moving. If not for the fact that Yi Fengyu was still on its back, it was afraid that it would transform into a little black cat and pounce into its master's arms. Yi Qingluo stood in front of Shi Ju. She looked up at Yi Fengyu. Yi Fengyu lowered his head and coincidentally met Yi Qingluo's line of sight. There was an indescribable sense of panic in his heart. The sword in his hand fell to the ground in shock. Clang. The sound of the long sword falling to the ground was extremely crisp. The blood on the ground stained the sword. Yi Fengyu was at a loss of what to do. He cautiously glanced at Yi Qingluo's expression and wanted to get down from the seal's back to pick up the long sword. However, Shi Ju didn't give him a chance to get down. When those who were awake saw this, they couldn't help but admire Yi Qingluo even more. The scene of Yi Fengyu brutally beating up Yi Fengru was clearly witnessed by all of them. His aura was strong and majestic. It had the aura of a sect. But when facing Yi Qingluo, he was like an obedient little brother. The flames on his body were completely restrained. It was as if he had done something wrong and was caught by his elders. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the atmosphere between the two of them was a very normal sibling relationship. On the other side, Yi Qingluo had already walked over and bent over to pick up the long sword which was stained with blood. She took out a handkerchief and wiped the blood off the sword bit by bit. Without raising his head, he said, "Little you, my hands are stained with a lot of blood. Many lives have been lost. I have also used many cruel methods to torture my enemies." She paused, and the hand that was wiping the sword also stopped. "Are you afraid of me like this?" "I'm not afraid," Yi Fengyu replied without hesitation. As soon as the words came out, Yi Fengyu was stunned. He stared at Yi Qingluo in a daze with his eyes wide open. Suddenly, he understood the reason why Yi Qingluo asked this question. His nervous and uneasy heart calmed down at this moment. Hearing Yi Fengyu's unhesitating reply, Yi Qingluo's lips curled into a faint smile. "The amount of blood and lives I'm stained with is not something you can imagine. But you're not afraid of me like this then. You've merely taught a lesson to the scum who insulted me. Why would I be afraid of you and blame you?" Hearing his sister's words, Yi Fengyu's eyes lit up. Chapter 2102. Yi Qingluo took out the sword that she had wiped clean and handed it over to him. The smile on her lips was extremely gentle. Yi Fengyu took the sword with trembling hands. "Sister." He pursed his thin lips and held the sword tightly. "I will definitely become the patriarch of Three Springs sect and become your most solid backing." Whether Yi Qingluo was his biological sister or not, in his heart, Yi Qingluo was his sister. All the hard work he had done, all in order to better protect his sister, just like how his sister protected him every time. Yi Qingluo saw the determination in his eyes. She smiled and nodded gently. "I believe in little you. In future, sister will have to rely on little you." After the crisis was resolved, the atmosphere in the garden became more relaxed because of this. Those representatives who woke up after taking the antidote felt like they had a new lease of life. They were extremely puzzled. Why were all the forces from other planes running to the West continent recently? What was going on? And it seemed like most of them were targeting Yi Qingluo. Everyone suddenly recalled the news that old Grand Madam and Yi Fengru had revealed not long ago. Yi Qingluo was not from the Yi family. Then, Yi Qingluo's mysterious father, could he be some big shot? Otherwise, how could Yi Qingluo have such a strong innate talent and attracted the attention of so many forces from other planes? Just as everyone was imagining a melodramatic drama that couldn't get any more melodramatic. Suddenly, someone noticed something and shouted angrily, "Eighth young Master Yi, be careful." Everyone was shocked by this shout. Yi Qingluo heard this and quickly reached out to grab Yi Fengyu's arm. She exerted force and pulled Yi Fengyu from Shi Ju's back to her back. Shi Ju quickly bent its limbs and laid flat on the ground. At the same time, a piercingly cold profound ray pierced over. Yi Qingluo's reaction was too fast. That profound ray pierced through thin air. But the profound ray did not stop because of this. Instead, it pierced towards Yiqing Luo's direction with irresistible force. Yiqing Luo snorted coldly as her fingers clenched tightly, and threw a punch forward. Bam! A loud sound followed Yiqing Luo's punch. A body covered in blood rolled out. It was Yifengru. When Yifengyu saw Yifengru lying in a pool of blood, his eyes flashed with disbelief. He had personally turned Yifengru into something unrecognizable. Naturally, he knew that it was impossible for Yifengru to still be able to fight. But Yifengru actually still had the strength to take advantage of the opportunity to assassinate them? Everyone looked at Yifengru, who had fallen to the ground, and was unable to get up. Seeing that Yiqing Luo and her brother were safe and sound, they heaved a sigh of relief. Everyone's gazes once again fell on Yifengru. They were also astonished. Yifengru was injured to this extent, yet he still had the strength to fight. Yiqing Luo, you slut, I'm going to kill you. Kill you. Yifengru fell to the ground, but he didn't settle down. He twisted his head ferociously and roared through gritted teeth. In his eyes, wisps of black gas flashed faintly. The denser it was, the more he struggled. After scolding Yiqing Luo with that furious bellow, he coughed out a mouthful of blood. His mouth opened and closed again, but there was no sound. But from the shape of Yifengru's mouth, Yifengru shouted the two words Qianqian. Zi Qianqian again. Yiqing Luo's slender brows knitted tightly as something flashed past her mind. She seemed to be about to grab that thing. Chapter 2103. That figure's speed was simply too fast. And it was filled with a killing intent. Yiqing Luo had yet to stop it. Carrying a strong practitioner's powerful palm wind, it mercilessly struck towards Yifengru, who was lying on the ground, unable to move. No! A shrill scream was heard. On the stage, a slender figure dashed towards Yifengru's direction. Bam! The palm wind landed heavily on the figure that had suddenly appeared. That person's body flew out weakly and fell beside Yifengru, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Beiming family. Yiqing Luo's throat moved. Just as that person dashed out to block in front of Yifengru, Yiqing Luo recognized that it was the Beiming family. Yifengru's birth mother, the Beiming family. She was a beautiful and intelligent woman. Yifengyu was also shocked by the sudden turn of events. The young man's slender body leaned slightly behind Yiqing Luo. A pair of anxious and uneasy eyes looked towards Yifengru's direction in a daze. Everyone was shocked that the Beiming family who suddenly rushed out to save Yifengru. Yiqing Luo had already set her sights on that person who attacked Yifengru. If she didn't hear wrongly, she seemed to have heard that person call out, "Island Sage," just now. Which meant, the person who attacked Yifengru was from Godless Island. Not far from Yifengru stood a hunched, extremely skinny old man. The old man's eyes stared at Yifengru, his hands clenched into fists. His face was filled with a vexed expression. Vexed. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes in interest. This old man was vexed, not being able to kill Yifengru? Wuxia. Mo Yuying's stiff voice rang from behind Yiqing Luo. She expressionlessly walked to Yiqing Luo's side. Her empty eyes locked onto that old man. Wuxia. Yiqing Luo had seen him before. She had seen this Wuxia beside Godless Island's young master Island Lord Yiqian. That time when they entered Godless Island's array. It was this Wuxia's doing. Wuxia greets Lord Island Sage. Wuxia bowed respectfully and was extremely respectful. Mo Yuying replied. That old man really put in a lot of effort. In order to kidnap Qing Luo, he even sent you out. Wuxia bowed even lower. Island Sage, please don't misunderstand. This subordinate is only here to monitor the situation of the islanders, and will not interfere with this order. You think that after leaving Godless Island for so many years, this holy lord has become so stupid that you can fool me? Mo Yuying sneered. These words came out of her mouth in a flat tone, although her tone was rigid. However, that kind of aura and the coldness in his words gave off a bone-chilling feeling. Wuxia knelt on the ground. This subordinate does not dare. Mo Yuying's empty eyes swept past Wuxia. She did not speak and did not ask Wu Sha to get up. She allowed Wu Sha to kneel on the ground. Wu Sha was furious, but he did not dare to offend the island sage. Yi Qingluo looked at Wu Sha, who was kneeling on the ground, and didn't say anything. Wu Sha's appearance made Yi Qingluo have some calculations in her heart. Wu Sha's motive was obviously to kill Yi Fengru. That meant to say that Yi Fengru had some secret on him, which the godless island wanted to destroy. Otherwise, Wu Sha would not specially appear and take action against Yi Fengru under everyone's watchful eyes. Even if Wu Sha's reason was to use Island Sage, which was Mo Yuying's name. But Yi Qingluo understood. Wu Sha merely wanted to take Yi Fengru's life. She was curious. Chapter 2104. Mother, Mother. Yi Fengru's face was sprayed with blood by Bimingshi. The warm blood soaked his face. It also caused Yi Fengru's heart to suddenly feel a sharp pain. Bimingshi spat out a mouthful of blood. Her eyes gradually lost focus. She struggled to adjust the focus, wanting to see her son clearly. But the feeling of powerlessness made her gradually want to close her eyes. Although Wu Sha's palm only used 50% of his strength. But Bimingshi was only a weak woman who didn't often cultivate. She couldn't withstand Wu Sha's palm. But Bimingshi didn't regret it. Her son was fine, as long as her son was fine. Mother, why did you block this palm for me? Why did you block it? Yi Fengru struggled to crawl to Bimingshi's side. He tightly grasped Bimingshi's hand, crying bitterly, Mother, Mother, don't close your eyes. I can save you. I'm a medicine master. I can save you. He frantically touched the ring in his hand. Several bottles of medicine were taken out. His hands were trembling as he desperately searched for healing pills. But every single bottle was filled with dark poison. Yi Fengru's heart was even more flustered, constantly rummaging for medicine bottles. His hands and body also began to tremble more and more. Ru. Bimingshi called Yi Fengru in a low voice. Yi Fengru's body stiffened, ignoring the blood all over his body, holding Bimingshi tightly. Mother, I'm here. Bimingshi leaned against his chest. Between the breath, there was a thick smell of blood. She couldn't tell whether it was Yi Fengru's or her own. She heard Yi Fengru call her mother, over and over again, and felt the warmth of his palms. Bimingshi's heart was already filled with satisfaction. She wanted to laugh, but didn't have the strength to move her lips. In the end, she could only spit out a few weak breaths. Ruer, promise, Mother, don't take revenge. Live well for Mother. You also have to live well. Bimingshi's breath was extremely weak, as if it would break at any moment. On Yi Fengru's face, there was no telling whether it was tears or blood. He hugged Lady Biming tightly and said with a sobbing tone, I will live on. Mother, you have to live on too. Mother. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Yi Qingluo. That blood-soaked face looked like it had been soaked in a pool of blood. No matter how one looked at it, it was horrifying. Yi Qingluo. I know you can save my mother. I beg you. I beg you to save her. Yi Fengru seemed to have caught hold of a life-saving straw as he struggled to get up and wanted to kneel down towards Yi Qingluo. But his body was already riddled with wounds, and he was holding Lady Biming, so he couldn't kneel at all. Yi Qingluo looked at him. Then he looked at the Biming clan in his arms. The expression on his face was calm. However, his heart was unable to calm down. No matter how wicked Yi Fengru was, he treated the Biming clan with sincerity. Biming clan. This lady's intelligence and accurate choice of side made Yi Qingluo not feel any antipathy towards her. However, she was no saint. The relationship between the mother and son was indeed touching. But Yi Qingluo would never forget that Yi Fengru had tried to kill her several times. I know I'm wrong, but my mother treats you sincerely. Yi Fengru wailed. I beg you to save my mother. I can use my life to exchange. Lady Biming suddenly increased her strength as she clasped Yi Fengru's wrist. Chapter 2105. Yi Qingluo fixed her gaze on the Biming clan. After a while, she moved her feet and walked towards her. Yi Fengru trembled as he raised his head to look at Yi Qingluo. The scarlet in his eyes and the lingering black aura gradually faded. Even though his face was covered in dirt and blood, Yi Qingluo could clearly see the pleading and helplessness on his face. Yi Qingluo, I beg you to save her. As long as you save her, I will do anything to repay you. Yi Fengru pleaded with a sobbing tone. If you want my life, you can take it. As long as you are willing to save my mother, save my mother. Yi Qingluo half squatted down. You are my prey, it's easy for me to take your life. Yi Fengru was stunned as tears flowed out of his eyes. Yi Qingluo, I know I have lost my mind, I shouldn't have done so many things to hurt you. But my mother doesn't know anything. She is wholeheartedly for you, for Three Springs sect. Yi Fengru. Yi Qingluo's cold voice interrupted Yi Fengru's crying. Her eyes were calm as she stared at Yi Fengru calmly. Didn't you say that Zi Qianqian is your everything and losing Zi Qianqian is equivalent to losing everything? She paused as her lips curled into a chilly arc. The arc was very shallow, but it also revealed some profound meaning. Yi Fengru's body stiffened as the expression on his face froze. Yi Fengru, have you ever thought about your mother and everything you did previously? Yi Qingluo smiled faintly as her gaze was like a torch. When you killed your father and forced the abdication, have you ever thought about your mother, that she is the concubine of Three Springs sect? Have you ever thought about what the outside world would say about her? When you joined forces with Yi Qingqian and the dark forces, have you ever thought about your mother? Have you ever thought about what would happen to you and your mother if the rebellion failed? If you succeed, you will bear the name of a traitor and your mother will be condemned by the world. How will she live peacefully? If you fail, you will die, and not only will your mother die with you, she will also bear the blame. You disregarded everything and even your life to seek revenge on me for Zi Qianqian. Have you ever thought about your mother's position in Three Springs sect after losing you? Yi Qingluo had yet to finish her words. Yi Fengru choked with sobs as he shook his head frantically. Don't say anymore, don't say anymore. Tears filled his face, mixed with the fresh blood. His entire face looked extremely comical. He hugged Lady Baiming tightly and cried until his voice was hoarse. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I was possessed. I shouldn't have done this. In this world, his only relative was his mother. It was the Baiming clan that had given him the peace he had grown up in the Three Springs sect, which was filled with internal strife and intrigue. It was the Baiming clan. In order for him to grow up in peace and not be bullied by the other concubines, he had to be submissive in front of the other concubines, tolerating everything. It was Baiming clan. Whenever he was injured while practicing cultivation, and no one cared for him, she would sneak into his courtyard to apply medicine and cheer him on. It was the Baiming clan. His mother was the kindest and most gentle mother in the world. For his mother, he worked hard to make himself more and more outstanding, using the mask of elegance and friendliness to deceive the concubines of other branches. He secretly developed his own forces. He was admitted into the Heavenly Academy with excellent results, and entered the Heavenly Profound class, through his cleverness and mask, making the concubines of other branches accept him. Such an outstanding existence. No one was aware of his ambition. All of this, it was all for his mother. But when was it? Chapter 2106. Yi Qingluo remained calm. As for Yi Fengru, who was crying like a man in tears, she was not moved in the slightest. She lowered her eyes and looked at Baiming, who was gripping Yi Fengru's sleeves tightly, struggling to keep her eyes open, her lips trembling. She pursed her lips and held Baiming's other hand. Baiming's body temperature was already a bit cold. Yi Qingluo revolved her profound energy, and injected some profound qi into Bei Mingshi's body to protect his shattered heart meridians. Bei Mingshi held Yi Qingluo's hand tightly, as her mouth moved agitatedly, wanting to say something. Don't talk anymore. If you drag on any longer, even Master Ghost Doctor won't be able to save you. Yi Qingluo pushed her hand away, so as not to disturb her transmission of profound qi. But she didn't use any strength. Baiming's grip on her hand tightened. Perhaps it was Yi Qing Luo's profound qi, which helped the Baiming family to recover some of their energy. She panted heavily as she raised her head and looked at Yi Qing Luo with pleading eyes as she spoke in an extremely soft voice. "Seventh miss, listen to me." I. Her face grew paler and paler. Wu Sha's palm had indeed caused her internal organs to shatter. He did not close his eyes. It was her feelings for her son that had kept her going until now. Baiming's body was throbbing with pain. She endured the pain and continued with difficulty. "I know my body the best. I want to beg, seventh young lady." Yi Qing Luo's action of transferring profound qi paused. Madame Baiming's breathing seemed to have stopped, as the hand which was holding Yi Qing Luo's hand gradually twisted into a crooked shape. Yi Qing Luo was shocked and hurriedly revolved her profound qi to maintain the vitality of the Baiming clan. "Seventh young lady, for the sake of my dedication to the Three Springs sect, spare Ruer's life. I'm willing to exchange something with you." Madame Baiming took a deep breath and tried her best to look at Yi Qing Luo. "Seventh miss, what happened that year? I actually know a little. If seventh miss wants to know about your biological father. In the secret compartment in my room there is something that seventh miss wants." She stuttered. Yi Qing Luo had to listen carefully to understand what she was saying. When the word biological father was mentioned, the expression on his face changed. Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly trembled. The Baiming clan knew what had happened back then? "I'll use this to exchange for Ruer's life." The depths of Lady Baiming's eyes had already gradually turned cloudy. "Ruer's sins will be repaid with my lowly life." Mother! Yi Fengru realized something. He hugged Lady Baiming and screamed, "Mother, don't leave me behind. If you leave, what's the point of living? Mother! Ruer!" Dark North strove to raise his hand, wanting to touch Yi Fengru's face. Her eyes gradually became misty and unfocused. His lips opened and closed slightly, and he breathed out soundlessly, "Promise me to live for the seventh miss for her." The last breath was getting lighter and lighter. Then Baiming's hand landed heavily on the ground. In the end, he closed his eyes. "Mother!" Yi Fengru wept like a child next to Baiming's corpse. Yi Qing Luo looked at her palm, at that powerless palm that slid down. His expressionless face changed a little. The Baiming clan was dead. Before she died, she used her own life to scheme against her. But she didn't have any temper at all. Baiming sure really doted on this son. In the end, she used her own life to exchange for Yi Fengru's life. Chapter 2107. Mother! Yi Fengru cried hoarsely. Her cries also caused everyone present to be moved. Even earlier, this young man had a fierce look, shouting to kill them, and even poison them. But seeing this scene, the crowd was still unable to condemn him at this moment. Yi Qing Luo's vision was fixed on Yi Fengru. She noticed it. At the moment when Baiming clan breathed her last, something seemed to be pulled out from Yi Fengru's body. Recalling earlier, Wu Sha's action of trying to kill Yi Fengru, Yi Qing Luo's eyes were filled with deep meaning, as she squinted her eyes. Following that, she slowly stood up, looking down at Yi Fengru who was kneeling on the ground, crying out in pain. Her calm voice had no ripples. "Yi Fengru, Baiming clan used her life to exchange for your life then. Next, whether you want to leave or stay, it's all up to you." The man who was carrying Baiming clan's corpse stiffened slightly. After a long time, Yi Fengru raised his blood-covered face. That pair of eyes filled with pain, stared at Yi Qing Luo without blinking. He wanted to rage. He wanted to blame Yi Qing Luo. Baiming clan's death was caused by Yi Qing Luo. But the words were at the tip of his tongue. But he couldn't spit out a single word. In his heart, he was very clear. It was him who caused the death of his mother. His mother died because of him. He wanted an outlet to vent the suppressed anger in his heart. But Yi Fengru was even clearer. This outlet absolutely could not be Yi Qing Luo. "I don't need you to give me an answer so quickly." How could Yi Qing Luo not see the hatred in Yi Fengru's eyes? Now she had no intention to kill Yi Fengru. Of course, if Yi Fengru still insisted on courting death, then she would not care about Baiming clan. But she would directly kill Yi Fengru to get rid of any future troubles. After all, in summary, Yi Fengru was indeed a trouble these few days. Before this, she had to go take a look first. Baiming clan's secret in exchange for Yi Fengru's life. Was it worth it? She had to tolerate Yi Fengru. Bring the Baiming clan back first. As for the burial, that's up to you. Yi Qingluo indifferently glanced at Yi Fengru. A medicine bottle rolled to the side of Yi Fengru's feet. After the ceremony ends, then give me your answer. Yi Fengru's body was taut, and he lowered his head. His 5 fingers gripped tightly onto Baiming's robes. He tried his best to suppress the anger in his chest. Slowly, he picked up the bottle and held it in his palm. He tightened his arms, stiffly opened the bottle, and swallowed a pill without hesitation. Then, ignoring the wounds on his body, he hugged Baiming Shi and wobbled towards the Three Springs sect's backyard. No one stopped him. No one took a step forward. Yi Fengru's figure disappeared into the flattened garden. Everyone came back to their senses. 7th young mistress of the night. How could you let him leave just like that? He wants to kill you. This kind of ingrate. Even if you soften your heart and let him go, he won't be grateful. Did you see the look in his eyes just now? It was as if he wanted to skin Yi's 7th young mistress alive. If it wasn't for his mother, he would be long dead. Everyone was extremely dissatisfied with Yi Fengru. Yi Qingluo smiled. Today is the day little Yu inherits the patriarch's position. It's not good to see blood. Chapter 2108. Was it really okay to lie so blatantly? However, Yi Qingluo didn't care about what those people were thinking. She pulled Yi Fengyu in front of her and said, "Let's continue with the succession ceremony. Hurry up." As she spoke, she glanced sideways and looked at Mo Yuing beside her. "Shadow, I'll leave Wu Sha to you. Don't let him leave." Mo Yuing tilted her head and immediately nodded. "I understand." He knew that Godless Island respected Mo Yuying's identity very much. Yi Qingluo wasn't afraid that Wu Sha would escape from Mo Yuying's hands. Thus, she focused all her attention on Yi Fengyu's succession ceremony. Just now, a series of unexpected events had occurred. It didn't just shock the various forces present. It also caused the old ancestor to be astonished. Hearing Yi Qingluo's words, the walking stick in old madam's hand started to tremble uncontrollably. Without the Baiming clan by his side to take care of him. After a series of huge changes, the elder ancestor couldn't even stand up at this time. No. Old 8, you can't be the leader of the Three Springs sect. The old ancestor's voice trembled as he tried his best to stop him. The old ancestor had seen Yi Fengyu's performance just now. She admired Yi Fengyu's methods against Yi Fengru. He was also very proud that Yi Fengyu had such a powerful aura at such a young age. But, thinking of what Yi Qingluo had said earlier, it had easily changed Yi Fengyu's emotions. Moreover, Yi Fengyu obviously followed Yi Qingluo's lead. If Yi Fengyu inherited the Three Springs sect, in the end, hadn't he still fallen into Yi Qingluo's hands? She wanted to make use of the relationship between Yi Qingluo and Yi Fengyu, and use Yi Qingluo's current influence to stabilize Three Springs sect. But it didn't mean that she was willing to let Yi Qingluo make use of him to control the Three Springs sect. Before Yi Fengyu had any feelings for Yi Qingluo, Yi Fengyu absolutely could not inherit the Three Springs sect. The old ancestor's sudden resistance caused everyone present to be stunned. Before this, didn't the old ancestor always approve of Yi Fengyu becoming the sect leader of the Three Springs sect? Why did he suddenly change his mind? That's right. He could not become the leader of the Three Springs sect. The Three Springs sect isn't something that can be inherited just because you say so. The sect elder's voice rang out, and the sect elder appeared out of nowhere. The sect elder stood beside the old ancestor. From the first time he saw Yi Qingluo, he felt that this young lady's threat to him was simply too huge. Now it seemed that it was indeed so. No matter what, he had to unite with the old forefather and chase Yi Qingluo, this pervert, out of Three Springs sect. Furthermore, those who were related to Yi Qingluo, those who had deep feelings for her, should all be chased out of Three Springs sect. TSK, you're indeed a cowardly and useless elder. Now that the matter has been settled, you're already running out to create trouble. Yiqing Luo ridiculed without any restraint. The sect elder's face darkened. What did you say? This elder is just... He stammered as he tried to retort. After a long while he finally said, that kid didn't poison me, I was poisoned. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly. The disdain in her eyes was obvious. The corner of her mouth curved up, and her eyes narrowed. She glanced sideways at the sect elder. If I'm not mistaken, it seems that in the instant that Yifengru poisoned him, the sect elder fled faster than a rabbit. She paused and turned her head to look at Yifengyu, smiling as she asked, Xiaoyu, am I right? Chapter 2109. You two siblings want to join forces and humiliate me, so that you can ascend to the position of the Three Springs sect's lord, right? Let me tell you, as long as I am alive, I will take on the responsibility of Three Springs sect's sect elder. The sect elder's face was livid with anger, but he could only clamor and refuse to relent. After saying that, he pushed the elder ancestor beside him. You are the only elder in this generation of Three Springs sect. Tell me, am I right? The old ancestor's eyes had always been fixed on Yifengyu. Hearing the sect elder's words, her old eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of mist. His entire person seemed to have aged several decades. How could the elder ancestor not know that Yifengyu was the only one in the Three Springs sect who could shoulder this responsibility? Yifengyu was also the most suitable candidate. But, unfortunately, she was worried about that meticulous and unpredictable Yiqing Luo. She did not want to see Three Springs sect fall into the hands of an outsider. The old ancestor stared blankly at Yifengyu for a long time. She slowly closed her eyes and sighed softly. Eighth brother's personality is not suitable to inherit the position of sect master. Hearing this, the sect leader felt a sense of satisfaction that he had finally received the support of the Yi clan. That's right. Yifengyu does not have the qualifications to inherit Three Springs sect. A sinister glint flashed in the sect elder's eyes. Now that the Three Springs sect is in a precarious situation, we need someone who can stabilize the Three Springs sect and ensure its future development to shoulder this heavy responsibility. He paused and said meaningfully, Old ancestor, in my opinion, what do you think? How could a smart person not understand the meaning behind the sect elder's words? Three Springs sect's young masters and young mistresses were either dead or injured. Only the two young masters, Yifengru and Yifengyu, were still alive. Yifengru would never have the chance to become the Three Springs sect's sect leader. Even Yifengru didn't have the qualifications. The person who could protect and stabilize the Three Springs sect, apart from the sect elders, there were no other candidates. The old ancestor did not expect that the sect elder would actually have such ambition. No sect elder had ever interfered with Three Springs sect's internal affairs. He was the first elder who wanted to take charge of the Three Springs sect. The old ancestor did not know how to respond, although this sect elder was from the Three Springs sect. However, in the heart of the old ancestor, he was still an outsider. Let the sect elders manage the Three Springs sect. It was no different from letting Yiqing Luo borrow Yifengyu's hand to manage Three Springs sect. What I mean is, I will temporarily take over the position of the sect leader, and train the young sect leader with you, old ancestor. Until the old ancestor feels that the young sect leader is capable of shouldering the responsibility of the Three Springs sect, I will step down. Seeing that the old ancestor was moved, the sect elders increased their efforts to persuade him. As expected, the old ancestor was persuaded. So the sect elders have been nitpicking at me the moment they saw me. They're not willing to let me or little you become the sect leader of the Three Springs sect. They're all waiting for this moment. A sweet and disdainful voice of a young lady came from the side. Yiqing Luo crossed her arms and looked at the sect elder with disdain. This can't be, that one is not qualified. The sect elder is really awe-inspiring. Then, I have something to ask. If little you is not qualified to be the Three Springs sect leader, Then, what qualifications do you have as the sect elder? Yi Qing Luo's last sentence was abruptly raised. Chapter 21:10. The entire garden fell into silence. In that instant, the atmosphere in the area froze. No one dared to make a sound as they stared nervously at the situation in front of them. Everyone could tell that Yi Qing Luo was angry. If it were them, they would be angry too. The sect elder had obviously made up his mind long ago. He wanted to take this opportunity to seize control of Three Springs sect. An outer sect elder. He wanted to seize control of internal affairs? This kind of thing, no matter which family, was absolutely not allowed to happen. However, Old Grandmadam was moved. They really couldn't understand what Old Grandmadam was thinking. She would rather believe in an outer sect elder, and not willing to believe in her own grandson. There was such an elder in Three Springs sect. If Three Springs sect announced its demise now, they absolutely believed in it. Even if it didn't fall now, without Yi Qing Luo's support, it was only a matter of time before it fell. You are an outsider. You have no right to intervene in Three Springs sect's affairs. The sect elder gritted his teeth and retorted. He put on a righteous look and snorted coldly. I am just doing official business. Although you are the young patriarch chosen by the former patriarch, but you do not have the blood of the Yi family flowing in you. You who are not from the Yi family, what right do you have to inherit the position of Three Springs sect's patriarch? The sect elder didn't panic and argued with reason. An Yi Fengyu, the Yi family's 8th young master, although he has the blood of the Yi family, but he is still young and his temperament is not suitable to take on such a big responsibility. My duty is to protect Three Springs sect and every generation's patriarch of Three Springs sect. It is reasonable for me to stay in Three Springs sect and nurture the 8th young master, while managing Three Springs sect on behalf of him. Why did you say that I am a traitor who covets Three Springs sect? I am the sect elder of the Three Springs sect. My status is noble. Even the Yi clan's old sect leader of the 3rd generation would have to address me respectfully as Lord Elder. Why should I covet Three Springs sect's authority? The sect elder's words sounded extremely reasonable. Yi Qing Luo snorted coldly. So what if your status is noble? You still don't have any real power. Her words hit the nail on the head. It directly pierced into the sect elder's vital point. The sect elder's face suddenly turned pale, and his 5 fingers clenched tightly into a fist. Especially in recent generations, I'm afraid the sect leader of the Three Springs sect has almost forgotten about the sect elders. How long had it been since he had enjoyed the honorable treatment from the previous sect master? You've wasted so much time. How could you possibly not be interested in the Three Springs sect's power? Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled upwards, revealing a few traces of ridicule. The sect elder was rendered speechless. His face was dark and gloomy, and his facial features looked somewhat sinister. Sect elder, you really? Old Grandmadam realized the seriousness of the matter when she heard Yi Qing Luo's words. Her heart sank. He had lived for most of his life, yet he was blinded at this critical moment. He really wanted an outer sect elder to take charge of the Three Springs sect? She was really getting old. His heart was getting more and more confused. Chapter 21:11. Looking at the sect elder who was still trying his best to quibble. Yi Qing Luo's face was still calm. Her lips curled into a faint smile. That calm look. It formed a sharp contrast with the exasperated sect elder. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head and smiled faintly. Sect elder, don't you think that the excuse of jealousy is too far-fetched? All the guests here can see clearly that I, Yi Qing Luo, have never thought of inheriting Three Springs sect. From the beginning to the end, today's succession ceremony was single-handedly created by me for little you. You were obviously exposed on the spot that you are not a descendant of the Yi family. That's why 8th young master came to replace you. The sect elder roared. Yi Qing Luo snorted coldly. If I want to be the patriarch of Three Springs sect, why should I not wear the attire specially made for me? Why would little you wear the attire of Three Springs sect and appear here? After a pause she asked. Or does the sect elder think that I have the ability to predict the future? You. The sect elder was speechless as he stared at Yi Qing Luo with a steely expression. Yi Qing Luo placed one hand on his shoulder. Her slender body only reached Yi Fengyu's shoulders. However, her aura was extremely powerful. She squinted her eyes. That sinister smile on her lips was extremely treacherous. What? Could it be that the sect elder is really going to insist that I can predict the future? The minute Yi Qing Luo said that, everyone present couldn't help but burst out laughing. Yes, Yi Qing Luo's words were reasonable. She didn't wear the attire specially made by the old Grand Master. Obviously, she had no intention to inherit the position of patriarch. From the beginning to the end, she had been planning for her brother. In comparison, it was obvious that the sect elder wanted to control the Three Springs sect. It was obvious that he was an ambitious elder of the sect. You two siblings deliberately colluded. Who doesn't know that eighth young master only listens to you? What's the difference between him and you being the patriarch? The sect elder stubbornly refused to let Yi Qing Luo go. He's only 15. He's not old enough to be crowned, and he's not qualified to inherit the position of the sect leader. The sect elders racked their brains and finally grasped the most important point in the rules of inheriting the position of the sect master. A complacent smile appeared on his face. If you were a descendant of the Yi clan, it would be logical for you to inherit the position of the clan leader when the clan leader died in an accident. But when the previous sect leader was alive, he had no intention of nurturing the eighth young master. If he inherits the position at this age, I'm afraid the future of the Three Springs sect. He stopped talking. However, everyone understood what he meant by the words he didn't finish. The old ancestor's expression also became solemn. The sect elder stroked his white flowery beard and looked at Yi Qing Luo complacently. According to the rules of succession, before Yi Fengyu reaches the age of 20, he has no right to inherit the position of sect master. He thought that after extinguishing all of Yi Qing Luo's hopes, Yi Qing Luo would definitely be flustered. But looking at Yi Qing Luo for some time, the corners of Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into a strange sneer. The sect elder's heart trembled. Could it be that Yi Qing Luo still had some tricks up her sleeves? Yi Qing Luo placed her hands on Yi Fengyu's shoulders and pushed him towards the direction of the crowd. Chapter 21:12. Yi Qing Luo's gaze lightly swept over the sect elder. The hand on Yi Fengyu's shoulder slowly lifted up and gently tapped on his forehead. Yi Fengyu understood Yi Qing Luo's meaning. He immediately closed his eyes and let his heart gradually settle down, until he felt the scalding sensation on his forehead. Yi Fengyu then opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, he felt a chill down his spine. His entire aura was released in an instant. The young man was dressed in a solemn navy blue brocade robe. It should have looked extremely comical with that slightly immature face. But the young man's solemn expression, he forcibly raised his own aura to the peak, and also suppressed his own immaturity. The most shocking thing was, on the young man's forehead, there were a few extremely light but distinct patterns. The red flowing light outlined the faintly discernible patterns. At the same time, the dark clouds in the sky dispersed. The projected sunlight shone on the young man's handsome and extraordinary face. That powerful aura was so majestic that the entire garden fell into a dead silence. No matter how powerful the representative was, regardless of seniority or age. At this moment, they were all suppressed by Yi Fengyu's powerful aura and dared not to breathe. Everyone sighed in their hearts. He was indeed the younger brother that Yi Qing Luo brought up. At such a young age, he had such an oppressive aura. If properly cultivated, in the future when he grew up, he would absolutely become an overlord. Sect elder, old grand madam now. Is little you qualified? Yi Qing Luo let go of Yi Fengyu's hand and put her hands behind her back, smiling brightly. As everyone knows, every patriarch of the four major sects is selected by the godly emperor that we protect. In every generation, there will be a Yi family descendant who will inherit the patriarch's legacy, which is the imprint of the godly emperor. Yi Qing Luo's voice was calm and her enunciation was clear, narrating what everyone knew. This legend. In everyone's heart, it was just a legend. But today they really saw the God Emperor's imprint on Yi Fengyu's forehead. Their hearts were all shocked. God Emperor's imprint. It really is the God Emperor's imprint. Elder Ancestor suddenly stood up from the soft chair. His hand that was holding onto the walking stick was also trembling nonstop. Tears welled up in his murky old eyes. She excitedly strode towards Yi Fengyu. The mark of the Divine Emperor. This generation of the Yi clan finally had someone with the Divine Emperor's mark. She had thought that Yi Tianquang's sins were too deep, causing this generation to lose the Divine Emperor's imprint and the recognition of the Divine Emperor. Because of this, that was why she felt uneasy because of Yi Qingluo's identity. He was afraid that Yi Qingluo's appearance was told to her by the Emperor of Gods through the God Emperor's imprint. The Three Springs sect might disappear from this world. Otherwise, how could the descendants of this generation have lost the mark of the Divine Emperor? When she saw the Divine Emperor's mark on Yi Fengyu's forehead, the old ancestor's heart was finally at ease. The person who has the Divine Emperor's mark is the successor chosen by the Divine Emperor himself. Old 8 is qualified. He is the most qualified to become. I don't believe it. Before the old ancestor could finish her words, she was interrupted by the sect elder's exasperated roar. Yi Qingluo, I have the right to suspect that you want 8th young master to become the patriarch and deliberately use the matter of the Divine Emperor's imprint to deceive me. Chapter 21:13. The sect elder's behavior aroused the disgust of the crowd. Anyone could see the sect elder's ambition for the Three Springs sect at this moment. Under the leadership of the representatives of several forces, someone raised his arm and shouted, Yi Fengyu, the sect leader of the Three Springs sect. Yi Fengyu, the sect leader of the Three Springs sect. Yi Fengyu, the sect leader of the Three Springs sect. The orderly shouts were deafening. The sect elder's face turned ashen. He clenched his fists, feeling that he had no real power. He only had the title of sect elder. He could not stand in the Three Springs sect at all. He had not appeared for a few decades. These juniors dared to not give him face. Even the elder ancestor and Yi Tianquang had once respectfully knelt at his feet. Now they dared to question him. That was why he had no power. If he had real power, he could control the life and death of the Three Springs sect. How would the elder ancestor and the juniors of the Three Springs sect dare to treat him like this? The more the sect elder thought about it, the more unbalanced he felt. His face darkened. He reached out and pressed the red pattern on Yi Fengyu's forehead. He did not believe that the Divine Emperor's mark was real. It should be known that those who had the Divine Emperor's mark would have the mark appear on their forehead every new day. Their entire body would be cleansed by the power of the mark. Yi Fengyu had been in the Yi clan for 15 years. If Yi Fengyu had the Divine Emperor's mark, how could the Yi clan not have discovered its existence after so many years? This mark was a great honor for the descendants of the Yi clan. Would Yi Fengyu hide it from the Yi clan when he discovered that he had the mark? So, Yi Fengyu's mark was definitely fake. However, when the sect elder's hand touched the mark on Yi Fengyu's forehead, suddenly, a red light flowed out of Yi Fengyu's forehead and gathered in the center of his forehead. Whoosh! The red light turned into a sword of light and flew toward the sect elder's outstretched hand. Ah! The sect elder let out a blood-curdling scream as he was flung away by the red light and landed heavily on the ground. Then, the sect elder's face turned deathly pale as he struggled to crawl up from the ground. He knelt in Yi Fengyu's direction and begged, Sect leader, please spare my life. This subordinate was blinded by greed and deserves to die 10,000 times. As soon as he said this, he completely admitted it. The mark on Yi Fengyu's forehead. It was the mark of the Divine Emperor. Yi Fengyu was personally appointed by the Divine Emperor to be the leader of the Three Springs faction. If Yi Fengyu didn't have the qualifications to be the sovereign of the Three Springs sect, no one in the Yi clan had the right to do so. Immediately, the various forces stood up and began to congratulate him. Congratulations on inheriting the Three Springs sect leader. Even the luxurious garden had been razed to the ground. even if the succession ceremony was drenched in blood. However, it still couldn't suppress the joy that came from the bottom of everyone's heart. Without the interference of the sect's elders, the succession ceremony was extremely smooth. The sect elder appeared to be trembling with fear, as if he was afraid that Yi Fengyu would act on a whim and use him as an example. If it was in the past, the position of the sect elder could be said to be on the same level as the sect leader. Although he had no real power, the sect leader still had to give him face and seek his opinion on everything. But, this time, the sect leader was a difficult character to deal with. Behind him was an even more difficult and extremely arrogant and despotic Yiqing Luo. If these two juniors wanted to mess with him, they would absolutely not show any mercy. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.